Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, I hereby declare open the fourth meeting of the 49th session of the Working Group on the Universal Periodic Review. Before moving on with our business, I wish to inform you that the Division of Conference Management, DCM, of the United Nations Office at Geneva has prepared an online survey for our meeting. You are all invited to take the survey concerning the quality of conference services provided at this meeting. Participants in the room may access the survey by scanning the displayed QR code using your smartphone or tablet devices. Is there? Okay. While those connected remotely can use the web link. Your feedback on the quality of conference servicing at this meeting is important to the DCM in their efforts to provide more efficient and effective meetings. I would therefore like to encourage all delegates and attendees to participate in the survey, as it will take only approximately 5 minutes of your time. Before we begin, please let me remind you that all delegations should upload their oral statements through the online system for inscription on the list of speakers, that is event, before the opening of the review they intend to address. Receiving the written form of oral statements ahead of time will greatly facilitate the work of the interpreters, as well as that of the Troikas and the Secretariat for their timely preparation of the working group reports after each review. We will now proceed with the review of the Lao People's Democratic Republic. In accordance with the Human Rights Council Resolution 5/1, the review is based on the national report prepared by the state under review and the compilation of UN information and the summary of stakeholders' information, both prepared by the OSCHR. Before I give floor to the delegation, I wish to inform you that interpretation from and to the Lao language will be provided by the state under review for the entire duration of the meeting. Interpretation in national languages will only be possible in this room on channel number 8 and not through the UN TV webcast. Distinguished colleagues, now I have the honor to give the floor to Mr. Thongphane Savanphet, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Vice Chairman of the National Committee on Human Rights, to introduce the national report. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Excellency. Mr. Vice President, members of the Troika, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to be here today, together with my delegation for the Lao PDR Fourth Cycle Universal Periodic Review. I would like to begin by extending my sincere appreciation to the UPR Secretariat and the Troika, namely Burundi, Chile, and Marshall Islands, for their support and arrangement made for today's review. This year, 2025, is a special year for the Lao multi-ethnic people as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Lao PDR. It is also the final year of the implementation of the 9th National Socio-Economic Development Plan, or SEDP, while preparing for the 10th SEDP for 2026-2030, which will be adopted next year. Mr. Vice President, for a long period of time, the Lao people were denied their fundamental human rights while the country was occupied and dominated by foreign powers. Only since 1975 have the Lao people actually taken control of their own nation and experienced freedom, rights, and human dignity. The concepts of human rights, peace, and development are interconnected and reinforce one another. The complete realization of human rights, including civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights, depends on peace and growth. The Lao government has guided the multi-ethnic Lao people in the two national strategic tasks of national safeguarding and development. Significant accomplishments have been recorded, thus raising people's standards of living. Human rights and fundamental freedoms have been guaranteed and realized in accordance with the Constitution, laws, and international obligations of the country. Progress has been recorded in the government's efforts in moving towards graduating the country from the least developed countries or LDC status, although more preparations need to be undertaken to ensure a smooth, quality, and sustainable graduation. Mr. Vice President, the Lao PDR is unwaveringly committed to the promotion and protection of human rights and fully attaches great importance to the UPR, which is a peer review mechanism for the promotion and protection of human rights of all UN members in upholding the principles of non-discrimination, objectivity, transparency, dialogue, and cooperation. In the third cycle UPR, the Lao PDR supported 160 out of the 226 recommendations. The Lao government has taken the supported UPR recommendations seriously by successfully developing the National Plan of Action for the implementation of those recommendations. The Plan of Action serves as a reference in assigning responsibilities to relevant government ministries and agencies in the implementation process. The national report under the fourth cycle UPR was prepared and led by the drafting committee comprising representative and human rights focal points from relevant ministries and agencies. A series of consultations were conducted with the participation of central and local authorities, educational and research institutions, civil society organizations, and other partners and stakeholders. The national report focuses on reporting on the implementation of the UPR third cycle's recommendations supported by the Lao government. Among the successfully implemented recommendations, national legal framework has been improved for better promotion and protection of human rights. This year, 2025, marks another milestone in the political life of the Lao PDR, as the national constitution was recently amended in order to enhance people's democracy and the rule of law, as well as the rights to the national ownership and mastery of the Lao multi-ethnic people. The National Assembly has adopted and amended 73 laws. Many of the laws are related to the promotion and protection of human rights, such as laws on employment, the law on the protection of rights and interests of children, health, primary health care, housing, among others. I would like to specifically mention the amended law on protection of the rights and interests of the child, which prohibits all forms of violence against children, including the abuse of powers by civil servants, authorities, caregivers, and particularly prohibits corporal punishment of children in all places and circumstances, including at school and the family. Despite the difficulties the nation faced in the years after the third cycle UPR, including the COVID-19 outbreak, natural disasters, and economic and financial difficulties, the Lao people have benefited more from the progress made in the implementation of the SDGs and the 9th NSEDP in terms of economic, social, and cultural rights. To mitigate the impacts of these difficulties, the Lao government has taken prompt, decisive action. The Lao government has implemented the 2 national agendas since 2021 to handle drug issues and economic and financial difficulties. The nation's GDP grew by an average of 4.03% between 2021 and 2023, and 4.6% in 2024. The Lao government has made education and infrastructure improvements a top priority and has made effort to provide enough teachers for schools in rural and remote areas, ensure equitable access to early childhood education, free pre-primary and secondary education, and free higher education, and improve the quality of education through teaching, research, and technology. The Lao government has adopted a number of national strategies and action plans aiming at reducing maternal and child mortality, enhancing antenatal care, integrating reproductive health into the curricula for higher education in order to address issues such as unintended pregnancies and early child marriage. The Lao government has set target for reducing greenhouse gas emissions with the goal of achieving net zero emissions by 2050, while enhancing resilience to climate change in line with the Paris Agreement's goal. The Lao government has attached great importance to international and regional cooperation, particularly with UN human rights mechanism. The country has made effort to fulfill the reporting obligations under different human rights treaties and protocols. Since the third cycle UPR, the Lao PDR has submitted the initial report under ICSCR, the 10th periodic report under CEDAW, the 7th periodic report under CRC and its two optional protocols. The Lao PDR participated in the interactive dialogue on the initial report under CRPD, submitted responses to the CEDAW committee's list of issues, and participated in the interactive dialogue on the 10th periodic report under CEDAW. Furthermore, the Lao PDR submitted responses to recommendations 20, 38, and 40 issued by the Human Rights Committee regarding its initial report under ICCPR, and also responded to the list of issues raised by the UN Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. The Lao PDR has finalized its initial report under CAT, which is expected to be submitted to the UN CAT in the first half of this year. The Lao PDR is also in the process of preparation of the 19th to 25th combined periodic reports under ICERT. The Lao PDR has maintained cooperation with the UNHRC. The Lao government hosted His Excellency Volker Turk, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, in June 2024. During the visit, the High Commissioner met and exchanged views with Lao leaders, including the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the Vice President of the National Assembly. We also hosted the UN Special Rapporteur on the field of cultural rights in November 2024. The government attaches importance to providing information, replies, and clarifications to questions and inquiries raised by UNHRC complaint procedures, leading to better understanding of the human rights situation in the Lao PDR, and has constructively cooperated with the working group on situations of the complaint procedure on various cases. Last year, 2024, the Lao PDR successfully assumed the ASEAN chairmanship under the theme ASEAN Enhancing Connectivity and Resilience. The theme reflected the Lao PDR's national policy to turn itself from being a landlocked into a land-linked country and a regional connectivity hub, which is also in line with the ASEAN common goal of building a more connected, integrated, and resilient region. At the same time, by chairing the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights in the same year, the Lao PDR contributed to enhancing the ASEAN cooperative framework on the promotion and protection of human rights in ASEAN. Mr. Vice President, in the rapidly changing world, coupled with economic and financial difficulties and other challenges, the Lao PDR is strongly committed to the rules-based international order, the promotion of multilateralism, denouncing unilateral acts inconsistent with the principles of UN Charter and international laws. The UN Human Rights Council, including its various mechanisms, particularly UPR, should continue to be multilateral, cooperative, and constructive framework for ensuring and advancing the universal respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms for all, globally and nationally. While human rights promotion and protection is a continuous process in this diverse global community, it is important to take into account the national circumstances and conditions which play an important role in an effective and successful implementation of international human rights obligations and commitments, including UPR recommendations at the national level. The Lao government highly appreciates the continued good cooperation of OHCHR, UN agencies, and other development partners in supporting the human rights endeavors of the Lao government over the past years, including preparation for the fourth cycle UPR. Taking this opportunity, I would like to express our special thanks to the Voluntary Fund for financial and technical assistance and other development partners in the preparations and participation in the fourth cycle UPR. The Lao government is grateful for such cooperation in the years to come, particularly in the implementation of the recommendations to be supported by the Lao government as a result of this fourth cycle UPR. We are thankful for the advanced questions from 9 UN member states, namely Belgium, Costa Rica, Germany, Panama, Portugal, Sierra Leone, Slovenia, Spain, and the United Kingdoms of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We look forward to a candid and constructive dialogue, and we'll try our best to respond to the advanced questions, issues, and comments from UN member states during the interactive session. I thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Excellency, for your statement. We shall now begin our interactive dialogue. Before giving the floor to delegations for their questions and comments, I would like to remind you that the speaking time will be 1 minute and 25 seconds for all. I wish to reiterate that issues of a political, bilateral, and territorial nature should be kept out of our deliberations. Moreover, United Nations terminology should be used when referring to states and territories. Please be reminded that only the use of the words recommend or recommendation will ensure that the relevant parts of your statements are included in the recommendation section of the Working Group report. Also allow me to recall that the Human Rights Council strongly rejects any act of intimidation or reprisal against individuals and groups who cooperate or have cooperated with the United Nations and its representatives and mechanisms in the field of human rights. We will now begin with the list of speakers. And the first on my list is Spain. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Spain.
Muchas gracias, señor vicepresidente. España da la bienvenida a la delegación de la República Democrática Popular de Laos y agradece su participación en este ejercicio. España valora positivamente el compromiso expresado por el Gobierno de Laos en la defensa y promoción de los derechos humanos y le felicita por la adopción de un Plan Nacional para la Prevención y Eliminación de la Violencia contra las Mujeres. En este sentido, España recomienda con espíritu constructivo: 1. Adoptar las medidas necesarias para que se investiguen y persigan de manera efectiva los delitos de violencia contra las mujeres. 2. Abolir definitivamente la pena de muerte en línea con la existente moratoria de facto o al menos una reforma del Código Penal que reduzca el número de delitos por los cuales se puede imponer la pena capital. 3. Continuar con los esfuerzos de las autoridades para garantizar de manera efectiva la plena inclusión de las personas con discapacidad, incluyendo el acceso a la educación, al empleo y a la atención sanitaria. 4. Adoptar medidas efectivas para garantizar el acceso universal y equitativo al agua potable y al saneamiento, especialmente en áreas rurales y remotas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Sri Lanka welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic to the 4th UPR review cycle and appreciates the presentation of its national report. We positively note the actions taken by the Lao PDR to improve good governance and public administration of the country by advancing digital systems while improving efficiency and transparency of services. In constructive spirit, Sri Lanka wishes to recommend the government of Lao PDR the following. 1. Take action to implement comprehensive measures to hold the parties accountable for forced labor, human trafficking, and online scam operations located in the country's special economic zones. 2. Take measures to establish robust trafficking screening mechanisms in high-risk areas, including border zones, as it is observed that the country is becoming a destination for transnational human trafficking. 3. Take action to improve gender equality across all sectors and address the issues related to gender-based violence, including raising awareness, expanding shelter facilities for protection of girls and women. Sri Lanka wishes the government of Lao People's Democratic Republic success in its UPR engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Switzerland.
Monsieur le Vice-président, la Suisse souhaite la bienvenue à la délégation du Laos et lui fait les recommandations suivantes. 1. Ratifier sans délai la Convention contre la disparition forcée, mener les enquêtes de manière impartiale, indépendante, prompte et efficace, et assurer une communication régulière et transparente avec les familles concernées. 2. Amender le décret numéro 327, la loi sur la cybercriminalité et l'article 117 du Code pénal afin de garantir que les restrictions à la liberté d'expression soient conformes au pacte international relatif aux droits civils et politiques. 3. Veiller à la consultation libre, préalable et éclairée des communautés concernées dans tous les projets de développement et établir un cadre juridique clair pour l'indemnisation et la réinstallation des personnes déplacées dans le cadre de la loi sur la réinstallation et les moyens de subsistance. 4. Instaurer un moratoire sur les exécutions et commuer les peines de mort existantes. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Thailand.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We wish to welcome Deputy Foreign Minister Thongphane Savanphet and his delegation to Geneva. Thailand commends the Lao PDR's efforts to improve mother, child, and reproductive health. In a friendly spirit, Thailand recommends that the Lao PDR 1. Remain committed to ensure continuity of programs to promote and protect human rights in light of its future graduation from the LDC status. 2. Continue its efforts to combat human trafficking and transnational crimes through a human rights-based and victim-centered approach. 3. Further enhance women's access to sexual and reproductive health services. 4. Intensify efforts to reduce school dropouts by promoting inclusive education for all children. 5. Continue to eliminate gender-based discrimination and violence against women and girls, including by strengthening legal protections, access to justice, and support services. 6. Continue its efforts in the clearance of the confirmed hazardous areas in which necessary assistance to affected communities would be provided. We wish the Lao PDR a successful review. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Timor-Leste.
Thank you, Mr. President. Timor-Leste warmly welcomes the delegation of the Lao People's Democratic Republic, led by His Excellency Mr. Savanphet, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Vice Chairman of the National Committee on Human Rights, and appreciate the informative report. We welcome Lao PDR for adopting the National Strategy on Disaster Risk Reduction 2021-2030 and the Vision 2040 and National Strategy on Water Management, which aim to build essential infrastructure and address the impacts of climate change while safeguarding public health and well-being. We also note with appreciation the progress made in promoting women's leadership at the community level, reflected in the increased number for female village heads following the adoption of decisions number 649 in 2016. In a constructive spirit, Timor-Leste recommends that the Lao PDR first establish a national human rights institutions in full compliance with the Paris principles. The second, consider reducing the number of offenses subject to the death penalty with a view toward its full abolition. We wish the Lao PDR a successful review. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Togo.
Président, ma délégation remercie les distingués représentants de la République démocratique populaire Lao pour la présentation du rapport sur la situation des droits de l'homme dans leur pays. Le Togo salue les actions menées par le gouvernement Lao pour améliorer l'accès de tous à la justice et renforcer les droits socio-économiques, notamment ceux des femmes, des enfants et des personnes handicapées. Toutefois, dans un esprit constructif, le Togo recommande à la République démocratique populaire Lao de prendre les mesures nécessaires pour créer une institution nationale des droits de l'homme conforme aux principes de Paris, ratifier les 2 protocoles facultatifs se rapportant au pacte international relatif aux droits civils et politiques, notamment celui visant à abolir la peine de mort, ratifier le protocole facultatif se rapportant à la Convention contre la torture et autres peines ou traitements cruels, inhumains ou dégradants, ratifier la Convention internationale sur la protection des droits de tous les travailleurs migrants et des membres de leur famille. Enfin, la délégation togolaise souhaite plein succès à la République démocratique populaire Lao dans la mise en œuvre des recommandations issues du présent examen. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Türkiye.
Mr. Vice President, we welcome the delegation of Lao PDR and thank them for their presentation. Türkiye welcomes the efforts by the government of Lao PDR towards achieving the human rights obligations, improving the socio-economic development of the country, as well as enhancing the rule of law and good governance. We praise Lao PDR for the amendment to the law on the protection of the rights and interests of children in 2023, banning corporal punishment of children. We commend Lao PDR for integrating SDGs into its 9th National Socio-Economic Development Plan, NSEDP. We also welcome the progress in addressing poverty in the country despite various global, regional, and national challenges. We take positive note of the expansion of health networks reaching both urban and rural areas and the reduction of child and maternal mortality cases. In a constructive spirit, we recommend Lao PDR to continue legislative reforms and enhance civil society engagement, enable further participation of women in decision-making positions, maintain efforts to provide social services, health services, and education for the vulnerable groups, including people with disabilities. We wish Lao PDR a successful review. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Ukraine.
Thank you very much. Ukraine welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic and thanks it for the presentation of the national report. We know the efforts undertaken by the government of Lao People's Democratic Republic to advance the protection of human rights since the last UPR cycle. However, we remain concerned about ongoing reports of a shrinking civic space, restrictions on freedom of expression, cases of arbitrary arrest and incommunicado detention, as well as persistent shortcomings in ensuring fair trial guarantees. In the spirit of constructive engagement, Ukraine would like to make the following recommendations: to enhance independent monitoring and complaint mechanisms to ensure the lawfulness of arrest and detention procedures, to ratify the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance, to ensure full respect for freedom and expression and media freedom by aligning national legislation with international standards, to establish an independent national human rights institution in accordance with the Paris principles, to institutionalize meaningful engagement with civil society organizations and other civic stakeholders in decision-making procedures at all levels. We wish Lao People's Democratic Republic a successful review. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The UK welcomes the Lao PDR's engagement with the UN human rights mechanisms and its efforts to address human rights challenges. We are pleased with the inclusion of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women in Laos action plans. However, the UK remains concerned over restrictions on freedom of expression, assembly and religion. We are also concerned by limited land rights for vulnerable communities and the worsening issue of human trafficking linked to serious organised crime. We urge the government to act on these issues and uphold its international obligations. In particular, we recommend that Laos 1. Takes immediate steps to protect and promote civic space, ensuring that all individuals can freely exercise their rights without fear of reprisal. 2. Ensures that development projects respect the rights of affected communities, including noting the principle of free, prior and informed consent. 3. Implements its international obligations under the protocol to prevent, suppress and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children, and to collaborate with regional and international partners to address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Uruguay.
Muchas gracias, señor vicepresidente. Uruguay da la bienvenida a la delegación de la República Democrática Popular de Laos y le agradece la presentación de su informe nacional, saludando los esfuerzos realizados por el país en materia de protección de los derechos humanos. Constructivamente recomendamos, 1, considerar revisar la legislación nacional pertinente con vistas a erradicar el matrimonio infantil y precoz. 2, garantizar el acceso de las mujeres y niñas a los servicios de salud sexual y reproductiva en todo el territorio nacional. 3, ratificar la Convención sobre la protección de las personas contra las desapariciones forzadas. Y 4, intensificar sus esfuerzos para ratificar el segundo protocolo facultativo al Pacto de Derechos Civiles y Políticos destinados a abolir la pena de muerte. Uruguay le desea éxito a Laos en este cuarto ciclo de examen. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Uzbekistan.
Thank you, Chair. We warmly welcome the distinguished delegation of Laos Democratic Republic and thank for the presentation of the national report, which is undoubtedly the result of great work and shows serious approach and attention of Laos government to the UPR mechanism. We commend the progress made by Laos in protection and promotion human rights. In particular, we welcome the adoption of the national strategy on reduction of disaster risk, the adolescent and youth development strategy, as well as the amendment to the law on the protection of the rights and interests of child to comply with the Convention on the Rights of Child and its optional protocols prohibiting all forms of violence against children, including abuse by civil servants, authorities, and caregivers. Our delegation makes the following recommendations. First, continue efforts to improve standards of living, ensure broad access to equality education and health services. Second, intensify efforts to implement the provisions of National Nutrition Action Plan, which aims primarily to address the issue of malnutrition among women and children. We make this opportunity to wish the delegation of the Laos Democratic Republic a successful and productive review. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Now a video statement by Vanuatu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Vanuatu welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic and thanks the delegation for the presentation of its national report. Vanuatu particularly welcomes the National Strategy on Disaster Risk Reduction for 2021 to 2030 to improving, strengthening the disaster prevention system, risk reduction, preparedness, and response, and to improving post-disaster recovery. We also welcome the Law on the Development and Protection of Women 2024 and the Law on the Protection of the Rights and Interests of the Child 2023. Vanuatu encourages Lao People's Democratic Republic to continue the efforts and would like, in a constructive dialogue, to make the following recommendation. Continue its efforts to implement measures to protect vulnerable groups, including children and persons with disabilities. Vanuatu wishes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic a successful UPR. I thank you.
Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
Gracias, vicepresidente. Damos una fraternal bienvenida a la distinguida delegación de la República Democrática Popular Lao y agradecemos su presentación. Valoramos la cooperación con el mecanismo del EPU y consideramos que son los mecanismos voluntarios y no los impuestos los que aportan mayores resultados para los derechos humanos. Resaltamos los esfuerzos realizados por el país para promover y proteger los derechos humanos de su población. En especial, destacamos la aplicación de las recomendaciones aceptadas durante su anterior ciclo del EPU mediante su 9º Plan Nacional de Desarrollo Socioeconómico y valoramos positivamente la aprobación y actualización de 73 leyes relacionadas con los derechos humanos. Por otra parte, destacamos la aplicación de la Estrategia y Plan de Acción Nacional sobre la Salud Reproductiva Materna, Neonatal, Infantil y Adolescente, así como el Plan de Desarrollo del Sector Educativo y Deportivo 2021-2025 y el 4º Plan de Acción Nacional Quinquenal sobre Igualdad de Género. En ese sentido, en aras de continuar con sus exitosas políticas en favor de la promoción, protección y disfrute de los derechos humanos, realizamos respetuosamente las siguientes recomendaciones. 1. Continuar con la aprobación y revisión de leyes e instrumentos legales con base a sus realidades nacionales que permitan fortalecer la promoción, protección y disfrute de los derechos humanos de toda su población, incluyendo el derecho al desarrollo. 2. Reforzar la aplicación de políticas.
Thank you, Venezuela. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Vietnam.
Mr. Vice President, Vietnam wholeheartedly welcomes the delegation of Lao PDR led by His Excellency Mr. Thongphane Savanphet and commends its comprehensive national report. We recognize Laos' successes and continued commitment to promoting sustainable development and protecting human rights through legislative reform, strategic planning, and regional cooperation. In a spirit of constructive dialogue and solidarity, Vietnam respectfully offers the following 3 recommendations. 1. Integrate the implementation of the SDGs and UPR recommendations into the upcoming 10 National Socio-Economic Development Plan and strengthen regional and international human rights cooperation. 2. Enhance the capacity of government officials in human rights promotion and mainstream inclusive policies that support poverty eradication, healthcare access, gender equality, and protection of vulnerable groups, including women, children, and persons with disabilities. 3. Improve equitable access to education, health, and social services, particularly in rural and remote areas, to raise living standards and ensure sustainable development. We wish Laos continued progress and success in this EPR process. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Zimbabwe welcomes the delegation of the Lao People's Democratic Republic and recognizes efforts and commitments the Lao PDR has made since the last review through enacting legislation and strengthening institutions and mechanisms that guarantee and safeguard the fundamental human rights of its people. In the spirit of dialogue, we recommend that the Lao PDR work on healthcare and education systems that reach its vulnerable communities, especially women, children, people living with disabilities, and those living in remote areas. Continue improving the efficiency of existing national institutions and mechanisms that ensure promotion and protection of human rights, and promote human rights awareness, especially the rights of the vulnerable groups. We wish the Lao PDR a successful review. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Argentina.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Damos la bienvenida a la delegación de la República Democrática Popular, Lao, y agradecemos por la presentación de su examen periódico universal. Particularmente la Argentina lo congratula por haber aceptado 160 de las 226 recomendaciones de 89 Estados miembros de las Naciones Unidas durante el tercer ciclo del EPU en el año 2020 y por haberse convertido en Estado parte en los principales tratados internacionales y regionales relacionados con la lucha contra la trata de personas, como la Convención de las Naciones Unidas contra la Delincuencia Organizada Transnacional, la Convención sobre la Eliminación de todas formas de discriminación contra la mujer, la Convención sobre los Derechos del Niño, los Protocolos de Palermo sobre trata y el tráfico ilícito de personas, varios convenios de la OIT y también la Convención de la ASEAN contra la trata de personas, especialmente de mujeres y niños, así como la aplicación de su Plan de Acción Nacional de Lucha contra la Trata de Personas 2020-2025. Sin perjuicio de todo ello, la Argentina le recomienda a la República Democrática Popular Lao que arbitre medidas para reducir el número de delitos sancionables con la pena de muerte a fin de avanzar hacia su abolición total. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Armenia.
Merci, Monsieur le Vice-président. L'Arménie souhaite la bienvenue à la délégation de la République démocratique populaire Lao et la remercie pour la présentation de son rapport national. Nous saluons les efforts de la République démocratique populaire Lao pour renforcer son cadre juridique et institutionnel en faveur de la promotion et de la protection des droits de l'homme. Nous notons également avec satisfaction l'engagement du gouvernement en faveur de l'égalité entre les femmes et les hommes, notamment à travers la mise en œuvre du plan d'action national sur l'égalité des sexes, la lutte contre la violence à l'égard des femmes, l'autonomisation des femmes dans les fonctions de leadership et le renforcement des capacités. Dans l'esprit d'un dialogue constructif, l'Arménie propose les recommandations suivantes. Envisager la ratification de la Convention internationale pour la protection de toutes les personnes contre les disparitions forcées, garantir le respect du droit de réunion pacifique en sauvegardant les droits et libertés des journalistes, des acteurs de la société civile et des défenseurs des droits de l'homme, envisager la création d'une institution nationale indépendante des droits de l'homme conformément aux principes de Paris. En conclusion, nous souhaitons à la République démocratique populaire Lao un examen réussi. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Australia.
Thank you, Vice President. Australia thanks the delegation of Lao PDR for the presentation. We welcome Lao PDR's increased engagement with UN human rights mechanisms, including accommodating a visit from the Special Rapporteur on Cultural Rights. Australia also acknowledges that since 2020, Lao PDR adopted 82 laws to align with international human rights obligations. Australia recommends Lao PDR, 1, create conditions for free press and civil society to grow, including by amending relevant laws, such as Article 65 of the Criminal Code, to uphold the rights to freedom of expression, assembly and association. 2, conduct independent, impartial and transparent investigations into all alleged cases of enforced disappearance. And 3, further reduce the number of crimes punishable by death, including drug offences, and work towards a formal moratorium and ultimately abolition of the death penalty. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We warmly welcome the delegation of the Lao PDR and thank for the presentation of the national report. We commend the measures taken by the Lao PDR aiming to create and enhance conditions conducive to full enjoyment of civil, political, economic, social and cultural rights in the country. We highlight the integration of the SDGs into the 9th National Socio-Economic Development Plan and welcome, among others, achievements in poverty reduction and expansion of the health service network. We recommend the Lao PDR, 1, continue efforts to improve good governance and public administration. 2, strengthen the implementation of policies, strategies, and national action plans for persons with disabilities. 3, continue to constructively cooperate with the Human Rights Council and its mechanisms to promote and protect human rights in the country and abroad. We wish the Lao PDR a successful review. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Bangladesh.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Bangladesh welcomes the delegation of the Lao PDR. We appreciate the efforts of the Lao PDR in advancing the promotion and protection of human rights, particularly in enhancing judicial independence and impartiality and improving access to healthcare services and quality education. In the spirit of constructive engagement, we recommend the following. 1, consider establishing an independent national human rights institution. 2, take initiatives to create a more conducive environment for meaningful participation of women and girls in all sectors. 3, continue efforts with the international community's support and assistance in promoting and protecting human rights, particularly the economic, social, and cultural rights of the people of the Lao PDR. I thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Belarus.
Благодарю вас.
Тепло приветствуем делегацию Лаосской Народно-Демократической Республики и благодарим за представление национального доклада. Позитивно отмечаем усилия и конкретные результаты работы властей по развитию национальной системы защиты прав человека, в том числе в русле национального плана социально-экономического развития на 2021-2025 годы и других национальных программных документов. Отмечаем, что эти результаты достигнуты вопреки негативным последствиям COVID-19, финансово-экономическим вызовам и стихийным бедствиям. В духе конструктивного сотрудничества рекомендуем: первое. Продолжить реализацию мероприятий по обеспечению всеобщего доступа к правосудию, в том числе предоставление юридической помощи уязвимым слоям населения. Второе. Продолжить работу по борьбе с торговлей людьми, в том числе совместно с региональными и международными партнерами, а также укреплять потенциал Национального руководящего комитета по борьбе с торговлей людьми. Третье. Продолжить меры по повышению благосостояния народа и уровня социальной защиты уязвимых групп населения. Желаем делегации Лаоса успешного прохождения УПО. Благодарю вас.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Belgium.
Mr. Vice President, Belgium welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic and commends the government for its initiatives regarding social protection, awareness raising on human trafficking, as well as stimulating women's group leadership. In a constructive spirit, we recommend to conduct prompt, effective, impartial, thorough, and independent investigations into all cases of intimidation, attacks, disappearance, and killings of human rights defenders brought to the attention of the authorities. Intensify efforts to eradicate child and early marriage and other forms of gender-based violence against adolescent girls, such as bride kidnapping, trafficking, sexual exploitation, and intimate partner violence. As a strong opponent of death penalty, Belgium also recommends to introduce a de jure moratorium on death penalty pending its abolition, including for drug-related offenses, or at least to abolish mandatory death penalty and restrict its use only to crimes that meet the threshold of more serious crimes under international human rights law. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Bhutan.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Bhutan welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic to the fourth cycle of the UPR, and thanks the delegation for updating us on the key developments and initiatives undertaken since the last review. We acknowledge the efforts the government of Laos has taken during the review period, and in particular, the adoption of a number of laws to further strengthen the promotion and protection of human rights. Bhutan also commends the government of Laos for the considerable economic growth, which has led to significant strides in poverty reduction and improvements in living standards. Furthermore, the efforts taken to strengthen economic integration at international and regional levels, as well as its efforts to graduate from the LDC category, is commendable. In the spirit of friendship, Bhutan would like to offer the following recommendations. 1. To continue to strengthen the legal framework related to the environment, and 2. To continue to step up its efforts to improve the equitable access to educational opportunities by increasing public investment and improving the recruitment of teachers. We wish the delegation of Lao PDR a successful review. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the plurinational state of Bolivia.
Gracias, señor vicepresidente. Damos una cordial bienvenida a la distinguida delegación de la República Democrática Popular Lao. Agradecemos la presentación de su informe nacional, así como su participación constructiva en el EPU. Saludamos sus esfuerzos para implementar las recomendaciones desde su último examen y el desarrollo de planes y estrategias para la promoción y protección de los derechos humanos de su población, en particular de aquellos que están en situación de vulnerabilidad. Con un espíritu constructivo, Bolivia recomienda dar continuidad a los planes de acción nacional para la igualdad de género y el Plan de Acción Nacional para la Prevención y Eliminación de la Violencia contra Mujeres y Niños. 2. Fortalecer la aplicación del Plan Maestro de Asignación de Tierras Nacionales para 2023, que permita garantizar la seguridad alimentaria, reconociendo la tierra utilizada tradicionalmente por las comunidades rurales. 3. Desarrollar estrategias que permitan garantizar los servicios de agua y saneamiento, priorizando el acceso de las poblaciones más vulnerables y en áreas rurales. Bolivia desea a la República Democrática Popular Lao mucho éxito en su examen. Gracias, vicepresidente.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Brazil.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Brazil welcomes the delegation of the Lao People's Democratic Republic to the UPR. We commend the 2023 amendment to the law on the protection of the rights and interests of children, which explicitly prohibits corporal punishment in all settings. Brazil also recognized the progress in maternal and child health, particularly through improved prenatal and childbirth care, enhanced nutrition, and investments in midwife training. With constructive spirit, Brazil recommends that Lao PDR 1 intensify efforts to combat human trafficking by allocating the necessary resources to the prosecution of existing cases, with a particular focus on women and children, and by dismantling criminal networks. And 2, review legislation that is not in line with international human rights standards, especially concerning the rights to privacy, freedom of expression, freedom of association, and peaceful assembly. Despite considerable economic growth, we encourage Lao PDR to establish poverty reduction initiatives and adopt additional measures to protect the most vulnerable populations, particularly disadvantaged groups of women, ensuring their access to food and health care services. We wish the delegation of the Lao PDR a successful review. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Brunei Darussalam.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Brunei Darussalam warmly welcomes the delegation of the Lao People's Democratic Republic, a fellow ASEAN member state, to Geneva, and thanks them for the presentation of their national report. We commend the Lao PDR for its many achievements since the last cycle and for the measures taken to promote the well-being and human rights of its people. In particular, we recognize the integration of the SDGs into their national socio-economic development plan and the government's hard-earned efforts towards LDC graduation. In support of this, we propose 2 recommendations. 1, further efforts towards poverty alleviation within the framework of the SDGs, and 2, continue to improve the health status of the Lao people by strengthening existing programs to ensure the provision of services that is accessible to all. Mr. Vice President, Brunei Darussalam wishes the Lao PDR a successful review. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Bulgaria.
Mr. Vice President, Bulgaria welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic and thanks for the presentation of the national report. We acknowledge that the government has taken a number of steps to create a more favorable environment for the establishment and operation of civil society organizations. We encourage the authorities of the Lao People's Democratic Republic to develop and adopt effective policies to ensure the full implementation of the criminal code and the law on the protection of the rights and interests of the child, with the aim of significantly limiting the use of corporal punishment and of children in all settings. Bulgaria would like to make the following recommendations to Lao PDRs. 1, make further efforts to implement the pledges made during the high-level event commemorating the 75th anniversary of the adoption of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. And 2, revise relevant national legislation, update policies, and implement effective measures to prevent and eradicate child and early marriages. We wish the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic a successful outcome of the review. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Burundi.
Merci, Monsieur le Vice-président. Le Burundi accueille chaleureusement la distinguée délégation de la République démocratique populaire Lao et leur souhaite plein succès pour cet examen périodique universel. Ma délégation note avec intérêt l'adoption d'une loi contre la traite des êtres humains, l'exécution en cours de son plan d'action national, ainsi que la coopération initiée avec les pays voisins et les organisations internationales dans la lutte contre la traite des êtres humains. Ma délégation se réjouit de la mise en place d'un fonds de réduction de la pauvreté qui permet l'enregistrement des résultats concrets au bénéfice des populations les plus vulnérables, soit une éducation de qualité et inclusive, l'accès aux soins de santé et l'aide à la subsistance par la promotion de la nutrition, tout en saluant l'adoption des lois relatives à la promotion et à la protection des femmes, ainsi que la prévention et à la répression de la violence à l'égard des femmes. Dans un esprit constructif, ma délégation formule 2 recommandations. Poursuivre les programmes de renforcement des capacités des femmes, leur autonomisation économique et leur promotion dans les instances de prise de décision, poursuivre la lutte contre le travail forcé des enfants, le mariage forcé et précoce de l'enfant, ainsi que la traite des êtres humains. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Cambodia.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Cambodia extends its appreciations to the delegation of Lao PDR for its active engagement in the UPR process. We commend the progress made in the previous review cycles and acknowledge the Lao PDR continued commitment to the promotion and protection of human rights. Cambodia welcomes the positive reform undertaken in the area of good governance and socio-economic development during this reporting period, which reflects a strong commitment to advancing human rights. In a spirit of constructive cooperation, Cambodia would like to offer the following recommendation. 1, to continue strengthen socio-economic development plan with a focus on achieving development objectives and improving living standards for all citizens. And 2, continue to strengthen the rule of law and further develop the domestic legal frameworks to promote and protect human rights, including advancement of gender equality and women's empowerment. We wish the Lao PDR a successful review. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Canada.
Merci, Monsieur le Vice-président. Le Canada remercie la République démocratique populaire Lao de sa participation lors de cet examen périodique universel. Le Canada félicite le gouvernement laotien de son engagement positif envers les mécanismes de l'ONU. Le Canada recommande que la République démocratique populaire Lao 1. Abolisse la peine de mort, 2. Élabore et finance une stratégie nationale pour lutter contre la violence fondée sur le genre, ainsi que les mariages d'enfants précoces et forcés, qui prévoit des responsabilités claires, des mécanismes d'application, un processus d'établissement des responsabilités et un budget clair. 3. Mène des enquêtes crédibles sur tous les cas présumés de disparition forcée, y compris celui de Thongphane et d'autres défenseurs des droits de la personne. Et 4. Mettre pleinement en œuvre les obligations à respecter et à garantir les droits à la liberté d'expression, à la liberté d'association et à la liberté de réunion pacifique, y compris la prévention du harcèlement des défenseurs des droits de la personne. Merci.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Chile.
Gracias, señor presidente. Felicitamos a la República Democrática Popular Lao por la prohibición de los castigos corporales a los niños mediante la adopción de la Ley de Protección de los Derechos e Intereses del Niño. Con miras a seguir avanzando en el respeto y promoción de los derechos humanos, nuestro país respetuosamente recomienda ratificar la Convención Internacional para la Protección de todas las personas contra las desapariciones forzadas, extender una invitación permanente a todos los titulares de mandatos de los procedimientos especiales de las Naciones Unidas para visitar el país, establecer una institución nacional de derechos humanos independiente de conformidad con los principios de París, adoptar una ley integral contra la discriminación que abarque todos los motivos prohibidos de discriminación, incluido el origen étnico y la orientación sexual, modificar las leyes y reglamentos vigentes con el fin de favorecer el ejercicio de la libertad de expresión, incluyendo los espacios digitales, sin temor a sanciones y represalias. Deseamos a la República Democrática Popular Lao que este siglo del EPU sea exitoso. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of China.
谢谢副主席先生。中方欢迎老挝积极参加本轮国别人权审议，赞赏老挝自上轮审议以来在促进和保护人权方面所取得的成就，包括制定国家人权行动计划，克服新冠疫情、自然灾害等困难，实现经济稳步增长、粮食持续增产，加强法治建设，推广数字公共服务，积极保护妇女、儿童等特定群体权利，打击人口贩运等违法犯罪行为。中方愿本着建设性精神，向老挝提出4项建议：一是继续实施国家经济社会发展计划，促进经济社会可持续发展， 加强扶贫工作，增进人民福祉。2是继续进一步完善社会保障，确保人人享有基本医疗服务，获得优质教育。3是加强防灾减灾能力，减少气候变化和自然灾害影响。4是继续落实保护妇女、儿童、残疾人、难移民等特定群体权利相关政策和举措，打击人口贩运等犯罪行为。中方祝愿老挝第4轮国别人权审议取得圆满成功。谢谢副主席先生。
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Colombia.
Gracias, señor vicepresidente. Colombia agradece a la distinguida delegación de la República Democrática Popular Lao la presentación de su informe, deseándole los mayores éxitos y con ánimo constructivo recomienda. Primero, ratificar la Convención Internacional para la Protección de todas las personas contra las desapariciones forzadas y tipificar como delito la desaparición forzada de conformidad con las normas internacionales. Segundo, establecer una institución nacional de derechos humanos independiente de conformidad con los principios de París. Tercero, reducir el número de delitos sancionables con la pena de muerte con miras hacia la abolición total de dicha pena. Cuarto, suprimir las restricciones al registro y las actividades de las organizaciones de la sociedad civil. Quinto, realizar las modificaciones legales necesarias para tipificar como delitos todas las formas de violencia de género contra las mujeres y adoptar una definición de violación basada en la ausencia de consentimiento. Y sexto, tomar las medidas pertinentes para que los migrantes puedan acceder a atención sanitaria y planes de seguro médico, facilitando aspectos legales y lingüísticos. Gracias, señor vicepresidente.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Costa Rica.
Gracias, señor vicepresidente. Mi país agradece a la República Democrática Popular Lao por su informe y por la implementación del Plan Nacional de Lucha contra la Trata 2021-2025. Costa Rica recomienda: 1. Ratificar la Convención Internacional para la Protección de todas las personas contra las desapariciones forzadas y garantizar investigaciones imparciales y exhaustivas en esta materia. 2. Eliminar las restricciones que obstaculizan la libertad de expresión y el trabajo de los medios de comunicación independientes, como el artículo 23 de la Constitución y el decreto 238 de 2017 sobre asociaciones, y garantizar un entorno seguro y libre de intimidación, hostigamiento, amenazas o represalias para periodistas, defensores de los derechos humanos y personas que ejercen su derecho a expresar opiniones y a asociarse pacíficamente. 3. Combatir la trata de personas mejorando los procedimientos de identificación de las víctimas, aumentando la cooperación transfronteriza, garantizando servicios adecuados de protección y rehabilitación para supervivientes y combatiendo la impunidad hacia los traficantes. Le deseamos a la República Democrática Popular Lao una exitosa implementación en este cuarto ciclo del EPO. Gracias.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Côte d'Ivoire.
Merci, Monsieur le Vice-président. La Côte d'Ivoire souhaite la bienvenue à la délégation de la République démocratique populaire Lao et la remercie pour la présentation de son rapport national. Ma délégation félicite les autorités laotiennes pour les progrès accomplis en matière de promotion et de protection des droits des personnes handicapées, ainsi que pour les initiatives visant à améliorer l'accès à l'éducation et aux services de santé. La Côte d'Ivoire encourage le gouvernement laotien à poursuivre ses efforts en faveur de l'éradication des mariages d'enfants et de toutes les formes de violence à l'égard des femmes. Dans un esprit constructif, ma délégation souhaite formuler les recommandations suivantes. 1. Ratifier la Convention internationale sur la protection des droits de tous les travailleurs migrants et des membres de leurs familles. Et 2. Mettre en place une institution nationale des droits de l'homme conforme aux principes de Paris. Pour conclure, la Côte d'Ivoire souhaite plein succès à la délégation de Laos. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Cuba.
Gracias, señor vicepresidente. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Damos una cordial bienvenida a la delegación de la República Democrática Popular Lao. Saludamos el compromiso del país con el EPU y la adopción de planes nacionales para implementar las recomendaciones aceptadas en ciclos anteriores. Felicitamos a Lao por la aprobación de 73 leyes y otras medidas políticas, legislativas, judiciales y administrativas para garantizar que la población continúe disfrutando plenamente de los derechos humanos. Reconocemos reconocemos la evolución positiva de la economía laosiana a pesar del impacto de la COVID-19, la crisis multidimensional mundial y los desastres naturales que han afectado al país. Con espíritu constructivo, recomendamos: 1. Considerar la incorporación de las recomendaciones aceptadas en el 10º Plan Nacional de Desarrollo Socioeconómico 2026-2030 y en otras estrategias y planes nacionales. 2. Continuar fortaleciendo la capacitación de los funcionarios públicos en materia de derechos humanos. 3. Continuar consolidando la cooperación regional e internacional y la asistencia técnica en el ámbito de los derechos humanos. Deseamos éxitos a Lao en este examen, en la implementación de las recomendaciones aceptadas y en su proceso de reforma constitucional para mejorar la eficiencia de la gestión del Estado y fortalecer la democracia popular. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Cyprus.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Cyprus welcomes the delegation from the Lao PDR to the 4th UPR cycle and thanks them for their presentation. Cyprus welcomes Lao PDR's efforts to protect human rights and improve national mechanisms. However, challenges remain in promoting gender equality, combating discrimination, and protecting marginalized groups. Greater attention is needed to address domestic violence and support victims, including those at risk of trafficking. To this end, Cyprus recommends that Lao PDR ratifies the optional protocol to CEDAW as well as the optional protocol to the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Considers adopting comprehensive anti-discrimination legislation that includes discrimination based on gender and sexual orientation in the public and the private spheres. Intensifies efforts to prevent trafficking in persons, allocating additional resources to the identification, investigation, and prosecution of all trafficking cases, with a particular focus on women and children. Revises and enforces legislation to eradicate child and early marriage, as well as other forms of gender-based violence against adolescent girls, such as bride kidnapping, trafficking, sexual exploitation, and intimate partner violence. We wish Lao PDR a successful review. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Czechia.
Mr. Vice President, Czechia thanks Lao PDR for the presentation of its national report. We commend the country's effort to combat human trafficking. We note with regret that Lao PDR didn't support all our recommendations in the last UPR cycle. Thus, Czechia recommends to the Lao PDR to 1. Guarantee the full enjoyment of the freedom of opinion and expression, right of association and peaceful assembly, and right to privacy, offline as well as online. 2. Ratify and implement the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances. 3. Refrain from all forms of reprisals, including enforced disappearances. 4. Take concrete steps to combat gender-based violence and discrimination, to improve access of women and girls to labor market and education. 5. Enforce relevant national legislation to eradicate child and early marriage. 6. Reduce the number of death penalty offenses with the view of a complete abolition of the death penalty. Czechia wishes Lao PDR a successful UPR. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Thank you. Mr. President, the delegation of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea warmly welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic to this UPR cycle. We commend the government of Lao PDR for its efforts to ensure successful implementation of the 9th Five-Year National Socio-Economic Development Plan, as well as other national strategies aimed at enhancing the well-being of its people. My delegation wishes the government of Lao PDR greater success in its further endeavors for the promotion and protection of the human rights of its people, and recommends the following. 1. Continue to further strengthen the national health system and ensure full and effective implementation of laws, national strategies, and action plans related to maternal and child health care. 2. Continue and strengthen efforts to eradicate poverty and promote access to education for all citizens, especially in rural and remote areas. We wish Lao PDR a successful review. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Denmark.
Thank you, Vice President. Denmark welcomes the delegation of Laos PDR and thanks it for the presentation. Denmark recognizes Laos' efforts to coordinate with UN agencies and mechanisms, as well as receiving the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights for his first visit in the country in June 2024. However, we are concerned about the regression of civil liberties and civic space in Laos since its last UPR. Denmark therefore recommends Laos to 1. Ensure the right to presumption of innocence, effective legal representation and fair trials in accordance with ICCPR. 2. Improve conditions in detention centers, including access to legal representation, medical care and food, in compliance with the UN standard minimum rules on the treatment of prisoners, the so-called Nelson Mandela rules. 3. Ratify the optional protocol to the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment. Denmark wishes Laos PDR a successful review. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Egypt.
شكرا السيد نائب الرئيس. يرحب وفد مصر بوفد جمهورية لاو الديمقراطية الشعبية برئاسة نائب وزير الخارجية نائب رئيس اللجنة الوطنية لحقوق الإنسان، ونأخذ علما بالجهود الإيجابية لتعزيز وحماية حقوق الإنسان التي استعرضها الوفد، من بينها الخطة الوطنية التاسعة للتنمية الاجتماعية والاقتصادية 2021-2025. ونرحب بخطوات تنفيذ التوصيات المقبولة خلال الجولة الثالثة للاستعراض، وفي إطار الحوار البناء يتقدم وفد مصر بالتوصيات التالية. أولاً، الاستمرار في تنفيذ البرامج الوطنية لمكافحة الفقر وتعزيز التنمية الاقتصادية والاجتماعية لجميع شرائح المجتمع، وخاصة الفئات الأكثر احتياجاً لا سيما في المناطق الريفية. ثانياً، استكمال البرامج الخاصة بتعزيز المنظومة الصحية الوطنية بما في ذلك خدمات الرعاية الصحية الشاملة للمرأة وللطفل. ثالثاً، مواصلة الجهود الوطنية لضمان المساواة بين الجنسين وتمكين المرأة في المناصب القيادية ودوائر صنع القرار. شكرا السيد نائب الرئيس، ونتمنى لجمهورية لاو الديمقراطية الشعبية التوفيق والنجاح.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea is not in the floor, so we move on, and I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Eritrea.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We warmly welcome the delegation and His Excellency, the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs. Eritrea appreciates the government's commitment to reducing poverty and addressing development disparities, particularly through the 9th five-year National Socio-Economic Development Plan. The progress made in helping large segments of the population rise out of poverty as presented in the report is commendable. We recommend continued efforts to build on this success and to reach those communities still in need. We also welcome the health sector reform strategy, especially its strong focus on maternal and child health, reducing mortality and improving nutrition. The expansion of health services to both urban and rural areas, along with the implementation of the National Strategy and Action Plan on Reproductive, Maternal, Newborn, Child, and Adolescent Health, is particularly encouraging. We recommend further efforts to address remaining challenges in the health sector, especially in ensuring that rural areas are fully included in these important initiatives. Finally, we congratulate the Lao PDR on having largely fulfilled the 3 LDC graduation criteria. We extend our best wishes for continued success in the remaining assessments toward preparedness and completion of the LDC graduation process. We wish the Lao People's Democratic Republic continued success in this 4th UPR cycle and in all your efforts moving forward. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Estonia.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Estonia welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic to its 4th UPR and thanks for the additional information provided in the opening speech. We welcome the progress made in certain areas, particularly the 2023 amendments to the law on the protection of the rights and interests of children. We are concerned, however, about the very high rate of child marriage and the prevalence of violence against women. We recommend to 1. Adopt comprehensive anti-discrimination legislation in accordance with international human rights standards. 2. Implement concrete actions and allocate adequate resources to improve maternal and child health outcomes. 3. Guarantee unhindered access to domestic and foreign media for all, both online and offline. And 4. Ratify the 2nd optional protocol to the ICCPR. We wish Lao PDR a successful review. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand the delegation of Ethiopia. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Ethiopia extends a warm welcome to the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic to the fourth cycle of the UPR Working Group. We thank the delegation for the comprehensive national report and the informative oral presentation delivered today. Ethiopia commends Lao People's Democratic Republic for its continued commitment to the promotion and protection of human rights and for the efforts made to implement recommendations received during previous UPR cycles in an inclusive and constructive manner. In the spirit of constructive engagement, Ethiopia offers the following two recommendations. One, continue to expand investment in educational infrastructure and resources to enhance educational quality and promote inclusivity. Two, continue strengthening healthcare system, particularly by enhancing resources for maternal and child health programs. In closing, Ethiopia wishes every success to the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic in its engagement with the UPR Working Group. I thank you.
Thank you. I understand that Equatorial Guinea was in the room but didn't hear my call. So as a matter of courtesy, I would now like to give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Equatorial Guinea.
Gracias, señor vicepresidente. La delegación de Guinea Ecuatorial saluda a la delegación de la República Democrática Popular de Lao por su informe presentado en este cuarto examen periódico universal, EPU. Nuestro país felicita al Gobierno de la República Democrática Popular de Lao por la promoción de los derechos humanos. Valoramos su esfuerzo al dar prioridad al acceso a la justicia para todos, ofreciendo asistencia jurídica a las personas vulnerables, la creación del Centro de Formación de Abogados. Algunas organizaciones de la sociedad civil también ofrecen asistencia jurídica a mujeres y niños, víctimas de la violencia doméstica y de la trata de personas. Recomendaciones. 1. Seguir reforzando la integración de la mujer en todos los aspectos del mundo laboral. 2. Combatir contra la violencia de mujeres y niñas. 3. Facilitar el acceso a las capas vulnerables a la salud y a la educación. La delegación de Guinea Ecuatorial desea éxitos y aciertos a la delegación de la República Democrática Popular de Lao en su examen. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, I would now like to give the floor to the delegation to address the observations and comments that have been raised so far. So you have the floor, Excellency.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank UN member states for observations, comments, and recommendations during the first round of interventions. I will firstly address the issues relating to capacity building on human rights and human rights cooperation at regional and international level. Following my intervention, I will then give the floor to my colleagues from various sectors to address specific issues raised by the UN member states. On capacity building, the Lao government pays attention to building capacity of focal points on human rights under the National Committee on Human Rights at both central and provincial levels. These include participation in training programs, seminars, and dialogues on various human rights topics at national, regional, and international levels in order to strengthen the capacity for the implementation of human rights obligations related to their responsibilities, as well as the supported UPR recommendations, including by streamlining them into their respective strategies and action plans. However, due to budget constraints, the Lao PDR still requires technical and financial support from partners in order to implement human rights activities more effectively and efficiently. Mr. Vice President, on the issues of human rights cooperation at the international level, we highly value the visit of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights in June 2024, which marked a significant cooperation between the Lao PDR and UN HRC and OHCHR. The Lao PDR highly appreciates the UN agencies and development partners, especially the OHCHR Regional Office for Southeast Asia in Bangkok, for technical and financial support to strengthen the capacity of the NCHR Secretariat and our human rights focal points to prepare for UPR and treaty reporting process, as well as for support to the participation of Lao delegates in the fourth cycle UPR review and constructive dialogues under the human rights treaties to which the Lao PDR is party. At the regional level, the Lao PDR has actively engaged in the promotion and protection of human rights in ASEAN. The Lao PDR has played an important role as the ASEAN chair and the chair of the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights. In 2024, we successfully organized regular and special ICHA meetings and 2 ICHA regional workshops. In addition, the Lao PDR was involved in the drafting of the ASEAN Declaration on the right to a safe, clean, and sustainable environment, and led the ASEAN thematic study on the rights to peace, which was completed in 2024. The Lao PDR look forward to further cooperating with OHCHR, UN agencies, development partners, and all stakeholders for the promotion and protection of human rights in the country. Mr. Vice President, next, may I invite my colleagues from 5 different sectors, namely Ministry of Justice, Lao Women's Union, Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, and Ministry of Foreign Affairs to deliver their respective statements addressing specific issues related to their responsibilities. I thank you. Please.
Mr. Vice President, I'm pleased to present the progress made in access to justice and death penalty addressing recommendations. Between 2019 and 2024, we successfully established 359 office, clinics, and service points across the justice sector, Lao Bar Association, and Lao Women Union. This remarkable achievement represents a substantial increase of 315 locations since 2020, demonstrating our firm commitment to bringing the justice closer to all of our people. Legal aid services has directly benefited approximately 160,000 individuals, including over 42,000 women, reflecting a broad and inclusive reach in our pursuit of justice for all. In the legal profession, the number of achieved lawyers has been increasing significantly, now totaling 540 lawyers, including 105 women. This is 60% increasing number of the lawyers in 2020. Pro bono initiatives support legal aid for 12 court cases, which contribute 20 million Lao give from the Ministry of Justice. Village mediation unit were also strengthened under the new decree adopted in 2020. We have successfully restructured approximately 5,200,000 units and equipped with 42 trained members, including 7,500 women, resolving over the 200 disputes from the period of 2020 to 2024. For the question of the abolishment of the death penalty, I would like to address. Establishing of abolishment of the death penalty continue to be a significant challenge given our concern to current our social and cultural context. These conditions make a complete end to capital punishment difficulty currently. Therefore, as detailed in our final report, reducing the number of offenses punishable by death from 22 to 12 represents the most practicable option. This approach allows us to address concerns and recommendations regarding the human rights while we still reflecting the sentiment of our people. Thank you.
Mr. Vice President, Lao PDR is fully committed and has given top priority to promote women's participations in all spheres, political, economic, social, cultural, and family life, focusing on protecting women's rights and improving their living standards. The government has integrated gender perspectives into development agenda, advancing gender equality and strengthening the legal framework, including the amendment made to law on Laos women's and law on the development and protections of women. Lao women hold high positions in the government. In 2023, women occupy 48% of civil servants. In the National Assembly 9 legislature, women hold 22% of the seats and over 30% of seats in provincial people's assemblies. The government encourages women participations in business. Women have access to credit for small and medium-sized enterprises and banking system. Women own businesses representing 48% of the total. Lao government firmly rejects any form of violence against individuals, according importance to combat, prevent, and protect victims of gender-based violence and human trafficking, with victim-centered approach and prosecute the offenders. Lao PDR has strengthened national mechanism for assisting gender-based violence victims by developing standard operating procedures of health, social justice, and coordinations, and adopting the no wrong door approach, ensuring the victims can access to essential services. Furthermore, Lao Women's Union had extended shelter and counseling hotline to provinces, conduct awareness-raising campaigns about ending violence against women and girls, the risk and impact of human trafficking nationwide. From 2019 to 2024, Lao Women's Union has able to support 1,606 victims with 1,011 women. And many Ministry of Health also opened one-stop service for health care. Lao Women's Union has strengthened and built capacities to frontliners, service providers, and draft legislations regarding to the protections of human trafficking victims. In addition, in 2024, Laos Women's Union also opened the Counseling and Protection Center for Women and Children Facebook page so that Lao women migrant workers abroad can access to help if they are at risk for trafficking. Lao PDR is dedicated to eliminate child marriage to ensure a brighter future for all women and girls. Lao law on development and protections of women and law on protections of the rights and interests of the child prohibit the marriage for women under 18. Forced marriage of a child under 18 is a criminal offense as specified in the Penal Code. Lao Women Unions also produce radio spot on child marriage, aiming to raise awareness, prevent early marriage, and unwanted pregnancy. Moreover, the Lao government is committed to protect and support children affected by early marriage, ensuring their successful reintegrations into society while fostering their self-reliance and self-confidence in their future by supporting small grants, especially aiming at young mothers and girls who have prematurely left school. Lastly, Lao PDR reaffirms the commitment to promote women's advancement, gender equality, and the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women in all aspects that leave no one behind. Through the implementations of the National Socio-Economic Development Plan, Lao PDR is ready and look forward to further collaborations with CEDAW Committee, UN agencies, and development partners to better implement the concluding observation of the 10th periodic report on the implementations of the CEDAW in the Lao PDR. I thank you.
Mr. Vice President, Lao PDR reaffirms its commitment to promotion and protection of human rights, particularly the right to work enshrined in our national constitutions, and in line with international obligation. Lao PDR is a state party to 12 ILO conventions, including 7 fundamental conventions. In practices, the government has issued the ministerial regulation and guidelines related to the contract enforcement, minimum wage compliance, occupational safety and health, protection against harassment, exploitation, and discrimination, and safe and fair migration. Enhancing law enforcement, the government has set up the labor inspection unit to ensure compliance with labor standards, investigate complaints, provide technical advice to employers and workers for special economic zones. The government provided additional guidance on labor management together with the line ministries. Social protection. The government adopted the National Social Protection Strategy in 2020, which has the vision that by 2030, Lao people will access to the social protection for all. Recent years, we have been significant progress in expanding the social protection coverage through on 3 pillars, namely health insurance, social security, and social welfare. We have embarked on the pilot initiatives in collaboration with the development partners. Notably among these are the cash transfer program targeted at pregnant women and the newborn babies, and the cash support for children with disabilities. This program have demonstrated tangible positive impacts on the life of vulnerable individuals and families, reducing financial barriers and enhancing access to essential health care and social services. However, we recognize that the challenges persist, such as the financial limitations, infrastructure disparity, and the need for enhanced data collection mechanism to effectively identify and reach on vulnerable population. Looking ahead, the government is preparing a review and current strategy and to develop a second National Social Protection Strategy 2026-2030. Persons with disabilities. The Lao PDR has consistent priorities the right of persons with disabilities, demonstrating our commitment through legislative and policy advancement. In 2009, Lao PDR ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Person with Disabilities and the integrate CRPD principle in the domestic legal framework. In the light of recommendation on the multiple intersector sectional discrimination and reasonable accessibilities, currently the government is developing database for persons with disabilities and disaggregated such as age, gender, ethnicities. We are developing targeted strategy to combat multiple and intersectional discrimination incorporated in the 10 years strategic plan on the person with disability, as well as the National Plan of Action to implement CRPD recommendations. Lastly, the Technical Coordinating Committee has been established for coordinating and mainstreaming the strategic plan and plan of action to the sectoral strategic plans, and for example, education, health, public work, and the other. So the government welcomes the collaboration, technical assistance, and knowledge sharing opportunity to further advance the right of the workers, vulnerable group in line with international best practice. I thank you.
เฮียนท่านรองประธานกองประชุมที่เคารพนับถือข้าพเจ้าขออนุญาตให้ข้อมูลเกี่ยวกับคำถามเจาะจงของบรรดาประเทศสมาชิก 1. สิทธิเกี่ยวกับกรรมสิทธิ์ที่ดินแห่งสปป.ลาวเป็นกรรมสิทธิ์ขององค์คณะแห่งชาติซึ่งรัฐเป็นตัวแทนเจ้ากรรมสิทธิ์ดังกล่าวคุ้มครองรวมศูนย์เป็นเอกภาพในครอบครัวตัวประเทศรัฐมอบสิทธิ์นำไซดินให้พลเมืองลาวรวมหมู่นิติบุคคลการจัดตั้งนำไซอย่างยาวนานและมั่นคงคนต่างดาวคนบ่มีสัญชาติคนต่างประเทศที่เป็นเชื้อชาติลาวมีสิทธิ์เช่าสัมปทานนำรัฐและซื้อขายสิทธิ์นำไซดินได้มีกำหนดเวลา50 ปีที่เขตรัฐจัดสรรไว้ในกรณีรัฐมีความจำเป็นนำไซสาธารณประโยชน์ของชาติรัฐจะโอนสิทธิ์นำไซที่ดินคืนโดยการทดแทนค่าเสียหายอยู่สปป.ลาวบ่มีชนเผ่าดังเดิมทุกชนเผ่าล้วนแต่เสมอภาคกันในการคุ้มครองนำไซที่ดินแต่รัฐรับรู้และปกป้องสิทธิ์นำไซดินตามประเพณีของประชาชนที่บ่มีใบตาดินอยู่ในโดยเฉพาะอยู่ในเขตชนบทโดยการบุกเบิกนำไซมายาวนานหลายกว่า20 ปีโดยบ่มีเอกสารยั่งยืนแต่ได้รับการยั่งยืนจากนายบ้าน เจ้ากกเจ้าเหล่าหรือว่าเจ้าของดินข้างเคียงอย่างต่อเนื่องก็จะได้รับสิทธิ์นำใช้ดินถ้าหากว่ามีผลกระทบจากโครงการพัฒนาก็ได้รับการชดเชยคือกับมีใบตาดินรัฐรับรู้สิทธิ์นำใช้ดินของประชาชนที่อาศัยและทำการผลิตอยู่ในเขตที่ดินป่าไม้ก่อนการกำหนดเป็นที่ดินป่าไม้โดยการจัดสรรที่ดินขึ้นใหม่ถ้าหากว่าดินปลูกสร้างดินกสิกรรมทาวรเหมือนออกใบตาดินให้ข้าเจ้าส่วนดินที่ว่านำใช้แบบโบทาวรปลูกฝังเลี้ยงสัตว์มันจะออกใบยังยืนการนำใช้ที่ดินมีอายุเวลา50 ปีมีสัญญาและก็กำหนดเขตห่วงห้ามเด็ดขาดเพื่ออนุรักษ์ป่าไม้ชีวนานาพันธุ์ต่างๆสิทธิเกี่ยวต่อกับสิ่งแวดล้อมและการสดเสยรัฐบาลได้เอาใจใส่ปลุกจิตสำนึกด้านสิ่งแวดล้อมทั่วสังคมได้รับทราบโดยรายหุบการเป็นต้นปรับปรุงเข้าในระบบการเรียนการสอนโฆษณาเผยแพร่ตามบ้านออกสื่อทางสังคมออนไลน์ต่างๆในจัดกองประชุมสิทธิด้านสิ่งแวดล้อมร่วมกับองค์การยูนิปและ OHCHR อยู่สปปลาวจำนวน4 ครั้งขั้นศูนย์กลาง2 ครั้งแข่ง2 ครั้งมีบรรดากระทรวงคะแนนการอยู่ขั้นศูนย์กลางและท้องถิ่นเข้าร่วมรวมทั้งผู้จุดประสานงานสิทธิมนุษย์และองค์การจัดตั้งสังคมเข้าร่วมโครงการพัฒนาทุกโครงการพัฒนาต้องได้ดำเนินการประเมินผลกระทบต่อสิ่งแวดล้อมโดยการเก็บข้อมูลละเอียดทางกายภาพศิลปภาพเศรษฐกิจสังคมเขตที่ถือโครงการและเขตใกล้เคียงมีการประเมินผลแบบสะสมทดแทนค่าเสียหายจัดสรรภูมิลำเนาอาชีพฟื้นฟูชีวิตการเป็นอยู่ของประชาชนผลกระทบต่อสุขภาพบทบาทหญิงชายส่วนเผ่าผู้ด้อยโอกาสมีการลงเก็บข้อมูลภาคสนามมีการสัมภาษณ์ประชาชนจัดกองประชุมขั้นศูนย์กลางและท้องถิ่นโดยมีการส่วนร่วมของประชาชนทุกการจัดตั้งการชดเชยทดแทนค่าเสียหายมีคณะกรรมการขั้นท้องถิ่นหรือศูนย์กลางโดยประกอบมีรายคะแนนการเข้าร่วมมีเจ้าของโครงการเจ้าของสิทธินำใช้ดินองค์การปกครองทุกขั้นการโอนสิทธินำใช้ที่ดินต้องดำเนินก่อนการจะดำเนินการพัฒนาการประเมินราคาที่ดินได้รับรองจากสภาประชาชนขั้นแข่งแล้วจำนวน148 เมืองในขอบเขตทั่วประเทศการทดแทนค่าใช้จ่ายจากการพัฒนาต้องประเมินตัวจริงและยังถูกต้องกำกับเป็นจริงและต้องได้รับเสียงสลายจากประชาชนมูลค่าสดเสยได้รับรองจากสภาประชาชนขั้นแข่งการสดเสยเวียนคืนทางรถไฟลาวจีนนครหลวงวิจารณ์บ่เตนปัจจุบันได้สำเร็จอยู่ 91% โดยเฉพาะเมนตามเส้นทางแล้วเส้นทางนั้นสำเร็จแล้ว 99% ยัง 8% เมนอยู่ในสถานีรถไฟแต่ละจุดนั้นเนาะปัจจุบันนี้ย้อนว่าข้าเจ้าบ่ยอมหักเอาค่าสดเสยอยากได้ดินเป็นการทดแทนส่วนรัฐจัดสรรให้ข้าเจ้าก็ยังบ่อยากได้ต่อกับปัญหาดังกล่าวรัฐบาลได้มอบให้องค์การปกครองท้องถิ่นสืบต่อแก้ไขให้ความเป็นธรรมและโปร่งใสด้านสิทธิในการเปลี่ยนแปลงดินฟ้าอากาศรัฐบาลได้เอาใจใส่ประเมินผลกระทบการเปลี่ยนแปลงดินฟ้าอากาศต่อสิทธิทางสังคมวัฒนธรรมโดยเฉพาะแผนงานแห่งชาติการแก้ไขดินฟ้าอากาศฉบับปี 2021 ได้กำหนดนโยบายอย่างรอบด้านในการปรับตัวเข้ากับการเปลี่ยนแปลงดินฟ้าอากาศโดยเฉพาะได้กำหนดการประเมินกลุ่มความเสี่ยงความบอบบางโดยเฉพาะแม่หญิงเด็กน้อยคนพิการผู้สูงอายุและได้เสริมสร้างเวียกงานบทบาทหญิงชายเข้าในการปรับตัวกับการเปลี่ยนแปลงดินฟ้าอากาศในปี 2021 ได้สำเร็จการประเมินความเสี่ยงความบอบบางจากการเปลี่ยนแปลงดินฟ้าอากาศสำเร็จ 148 เมืองในขอบเขตทั่วประเทศได้สร้างแผนเขตที่มีความเสี่ยงจะเกิดภัยพิบัติและการวางมาตรการปรับตัวเข้ากับการเปลี่ยนแปลงดินฟ้าอากาศอย่างละเอียดเสริมขยายความทนทานการลดพรจากการเปลี่ยนแปลงดินฟ้าอากาศเพื่อเป็นข้อมูลในการวางนโยบายแก้ไขหากเกิดเหตุการณ์ฉุกเฉินทั้งหมดนั้นพวกเรามีกฎหมายมียุทธศาสตร์มีแผนดำเนินงานนิติกรรมใต้กฎหมายในการจัดตั้งปฏิบัติละเอียดขอบใจ
Mr. Vice President, freedom of expression is indispensable of the people's democracy and the rule of law in the Lao PDR. Freedom of expression is guaranteed by the Constitution and laws of the country, which are in line with international human rights law, particularly Article 19 of ICCPR. The Lao people have unrestricted access to information from internet and online social media and routinely express their views that are beneficial for the country's socio-economic development. It is important to bear in mind that freedom of expression carries with its special duties, particularly not to infringe upon the rights and freedom of others, not to defame others, or spread disinformation or hate speech. The Lao government promotes own types of media and publishing and has expanded the mass media infrastructure. Presently, there are 116 types of print media, 11 daily newspapers, 168 radio stations, 49 television stations, 86 online news platforms, and 70,858 community radio stations across the country. The country has its own satellite communication and has expanded its optical fiber networks. At present, 2G network covers 98% of villages, while 3G and 4G networks cover 87% and 77% respectively. There are 4,963,758 mobile phone subscriptions, out of which 4,674,070 mobile internet standard subscriptions and 1,233,787 landline subscription. Additionally, 18 interconnection points support cross-border telecommunications and internet connectivity. Indeed, more than 100 satellite TV channels from all over the world can be watched in the Lao PDR without any restriction whatsoever. Mr. Vice President, Lao PDR adapts cybercrime to the law on prevention and combating cybercrime. This law criminalizes cyber offenses and establishes the Lao Computer Emergency Response Team as the National Computer Security Incident Response Team to address cyber threats. The law outlines responsibilities for the Lao Computer Emergency Response Team, including recommend reports of security and handling complaints about online offenses. The Lao government takes measures against anyone who abuses the law by using freedom of expression. Indeed, the legal boundaries that we have in our law are in conformity with legitimate limitations allowed by Article 19 of ICCPR. Lao PDR stands ready and is open to exchange views and learn best practice with other UN member states on this matter following this fourth cycle UPR. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, we will now continue with our interactive dialogue. And the first speaker on my list is France. I invite the distinguished delegate of France to deliver its statement.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La France souhaite la très bienvenue à la délégation du Laos et la remercie pour son rapport et pour les clarifications qui viennent d'être apportées par la délégation. La France souhaite formuler les recommandations suivantes. 1. Instaurer un moratoire sur la peine de mort en vue d'une abolition définitive. Et je me remercie pour les explications qui viennent d'être données aussi. 2. Assurer la mise en œuvre effective des réglementations existantes pour lutter contre le travail forcé, y compris celui des femmes, et le travail des mineurs, et pour lutter contre les mariages forcés. 3. Ratifier la Convention internationale pour la protection de toutes les personnes contre les disparitions forcées. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Gambia.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The Gambia welcomes the delegation from Lao People's Democratic Republic and appreciates their engagement with the Human Rights Council today. We commend the Lao People's Democratic Republic for its efforts to advance socio-economic development and for progress in strengthening the national framework for child protection. In the spirit of constructive dialogue, the Gambia offers the following recommendations. 1. Establish a national human rights institution in line with the Paris Principles. 2. Adopt comprehensive anti-discrimination legislation encompassing all prohibited grounds of discrimination in line with international human rights obligations. 3. Ratify the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances and take further measures to align national legislation with the Convention. And 4. Enhance efforts to combat child labor and trafficking, including by strengthening child protection systems and improving enforcement of existing laws. My delegation wishes the distinguished delegation from Lao People's Democratic Republic a successful review. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Georgia welcomes the delegation of the Lao PDR and thanks the head of delegation for the presentation of the national report. Georgia positively assesses measures taken by the Lao government to combat trafficking, including the introduction of law on the protection of the rights and interests of children and awareness-raising campaigns by the National Steering Committee on Human Trafficking. My delegation also acknowledges certain progress made in the implementation of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Georgia appreciates the reduction of maternal and child mortality rates and encourages government to advance its efforts in this regard. With this, Georgia recommends to the Lao PDR, 1, to continue measures aimed at effective implementation of the CRPD, and 2, to actively continue the improvement of existing national human rights mechanisms with the aim to establish NHRI based on the Paris principles. We wish the delegation of the Lao PDR a successful UPR. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Germany.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Germany welcomes the delegation of the Lao PDR. Germany commends the authorities' openness to engage in dialogue with civil society organizations, and we welcome the Lao People's Democratic Republic for its development of provincial people's assemblies. However, Germany remains gravely concerned about continued occurrences of enforced disappearances. Equally concerning is the issue of human trafficking, which especially affects women, children, and ethnic minorities. Germany therefore recommends to Number 1, ratify the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances. 2, establish a central system for the protection of victims of human trafficking, including, among other things, the dissemination of information prior to migration and the creation of contact points offering assistance for reintegration after return. And 3, adopt a law on administrative procedures which provides for the establishment of an administrative jurisdiction. We wish the Lao People's Democratic Republic a successful UPR. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Iceland.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Iceland welcomes the delegation of the Lao People's Democratic Republic and its national report. In the spirit of constructive engagement, Iceland recommends the following. 1, abolish the death penalty and ratify the second optional protocol to the ICCPR. 2, repeal all provisions in the penal code that discriminate against women. 3, ensure access to sexual and reproductive health services. 4, decriminalize and legalize abortion. 5, adopt a consent-based definition of rape that applies to all persons without discrimination. 6, criminalize marital rape. 7, introduce a transparent administrative self-identification process for legal gender recognition, free from intrusive requirements. 8, develop and enforce comprehensive legislation that criminalizes all forms of discrimination against persons of diverse societies. I wish the Lao People's Democratic Republic all success for its review. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of India.
Mr. Vice President, India warmly welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic and thanks them for the presentation of their national report. We appreciate the progress made by Lao PDR towards poverty alleviation and sustainable economic development under the National Green Growth Strategy against historical constraints and the challenge of UXOs. We also welcome the efforts made by Lao PDR under the National Action Plan on combating human trafficking. In the spirit of constructive engagement, we recommend the following to Lao PDR. 1, continue efforts to provide improved healthcare access to persons with disabilities. 2, continue efforts to combat gender-based discrimination. And 3, continue efforts to improve access to quality education, especially in rural areas. We wish Lao PDR a successful UPR review. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Indonesia.
Mr. Vice President, Indonesia warmly welcomes the distinguished delegation of the Lao PDR and for presenting its report. We welcome the Lao PDR's effort in advancing its economic growth and development, leading to a reduction in the poverty rate and improvements in social welfare. We also appreciate the Lao PDR's active engagement within the ASEAN framework for the promotion and protection of human rights, particularly during its chairmanship last year. In the spirit of constructive cooperation, Indonesia recommends the following. 1. Redouble efforts to enhance the right to development by effectively implementing the master plan on national land allocation, aiming to reduce the development gap between urban and rural areas, and promote sustainable natural resource management. 2. Continue implementing the National Action Plan on combating human trafficking 2021 to 2025, focusing on raising public awareness and strengthening prevention efforts. 3. Strengthen efforts to promote human rights education and awareness among government officials, business actors, the media, and youth. We wish the Lao PDR a successful review. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The Islamic Republic of Iran welcomes the high-level delegation of the Lao PDR and thanks them for their active participation in the fourth cycle of the UPR. Iran highly values the national affairs undertaken by the Lao PDR in the promotion and protection of human rights, inter alia the adoption or amendment 73 laws by the National Assembly. We also commend Lao PDR for its continuous efforts in achieving steady economic recovery and GDP growth. In the spirit of constructive engagement, Iran offers the following recommendation to the Lao PDR. First, continue its endeavors in combating human trafficking, especially through enhancing regional cooperation. Second, further explore South-South cooperation in the process of graduation from LDC status, especially those collective efforts related to realization of the right to development. Third, ensure the full implementation of the 7 health-related laws adopted since 2021 to fully realize the right to health for all citizens, especially those in rural areas. The Islamic Republic of Iran wishes the Lao PDR every success in the UPR. I thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Iraq.
شكرا سيد نائب الرئيس. يرحب وفد جمهورية العراق برئيس وأعضاء وفد جمهورية لاو الديمقراطية الشعبية في إطار الجولة الرابعة لاستعراض الدوري الشامل. كما نرحب بجهود لاو في التزامها من خلال تقديم التقارير الوطنية إلى هيئات المعاهدات ووضع الخطط والبرامج الوطنية في إطار تعزيز سيادة القانون والحكومة الرشيدة. ونتقدم بالتوصيات التالية. أولا، الانضمام إلى الاتفاقية الدولية لحماية جميع الأشخاص من الاختفاء القسري. ثانيا، بذل مزيد من الجهود لتحسين أوضاع الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة لا سيما في بيئة العمل. نتمنى لوفد لاو الديمقراطية الشعبية التوفيق في هذا الاستعراض. شكرا سيد نائب الرئيس.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Ireland.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Ireland welcomes the delegation of the Lao People's Democratic Republic and thanks it for its presentation today. Ireland acknowledges the efforts of the Lao PDR to advance human rights domestically and notes progress made since the last UPR cycle. We recognise progress achieved by the Lao PDR in advancing the rights of persons with disabilities, including through the National Strategy and Programme for Persons with Disabilities 2021 to 2030 and the National Plan of Action for Persons with Disabilities. However, Ireland remains concerned by the limited civil society space and the lack of progress on the rights to freedom of opinion, expression, association and assembly. Ireland recommends that the Lao People's Democratic Republic 1. Create a safe and enabling environment for civil society actors by repealing or amending Decree No. 238 on associations and refraining from initiating criminal proceedings against individuals for the peaceful exercise of their human rights. 2. Ensure prompt, impartial and thorough investigations into all allegations of intimidation and violence against human rights defenders. 3. Establish a formal moratorium on executions and ratify the second optional protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights aiming at the abolition of the death penalty. We wish the Lao PDR every success in this UPR cycle. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Japan warmly welcomes the delegation of the Lao People's Democratic Republic. Japan welcomes the positive steps taken by the Lao PDR to implement the UPR third cycle recommendations. We appreciate the government's efforts toward enhancing gender equality through various national action plans. At the same time, Japan notes that the UN country team and treaty bodies have recommended that the Lao PDR take further measures to improve the human rights situations of women and girls in the country. We also note that the Lao PDR has not ratified the ICPPED, although it signed the convention in 2008. Japan therefore recommends that the Lao PDR, 1, further promote women's and girls' rights by increasing the access to health services and education, preventing violence against them, and forbidding forced marriage, and 2, ratify the ICPPED and continue to make efforts to address the case of the missing human rights defender referred to in the document prepared by OHCHR. We wish the delegation of the Lao PDR every success in the review. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Jordan.
Thank you. سيد الرئيس، نرحب برئيس وأعضاء وفد جمهورية لاوي الديمقراطية الشعبية ونشكره على تقديم تقريره الوطني ونهنئهم على التقدم المحرز في تنفيذ التوصيات الواردة خلال الدورة السابقة لاستعراض الدور الشامل. كما نثمن عمل الحكومة على تعديل دستور عام 2015 لتحسين كفاءة إدارة الدولة، ونود أن نتقدم بالتوصيات التالية. أولاً، الاستمرار في تنفيذ خطة العمل الوطنية لمكافحة الاتجار بالبشر للفترة من عام 2021 للعام 2025. ثانياً، مواصلة الدعم للاستراتيجية الوطنية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث للفترة من العام 2021 للعام 2030، والتي تهدف من ضمن أمور أخرى لتعزيز نظام الوقاية من الكوارث والحد من المخاطر والتأهب والاستجابة. في الختام، نتمنى لوفد جمهورية لاو كل التوفيق وشكراً.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Kuwait.
سيد نائب الرئيس، يرحب وفد دولة الكويت برئيس وفد جمهورية لاوس الديمقراطية الشعبية والوفد المرافق له، مشيدا بالتقرير الوطني الذي حظي باهتمامنا والذي يعكس التزام حكومتها بالتعاون مع آليات الأمم المتحدة لحقوق الإنسان. ويثني وفد بلادي على الخطوات المتخذة منذ الجولة السابقة، بما في ذلك اعتماد قوانين جديدة واستراتيجيات للتنمية الاجتماعية والاقتصادية، فضلاً عن الجهود المبذولة لتعزيز سيادة القانون ومكافحة الفقر والاتجار بالبشر. وانطلاقاً من مبدأ الحوار البناء، يسعدنا أن نتقدم بالتوصيات التالية. 1. مواصلة الجهود لحماية النساء والفتيات من جميع أشكال العنف من خلال تعزيز آليات الوقاية والحماية وبناء قدرات الجهات المعنية. 2. تشجيع التوعية المجتمعية حول أهمية المساواة بين الجنسين وتعزيز دور الأسرة والمدرسة في ترسيخ ثقافة احترام الحقوق منذ سن مبكرة. وشكرا السيد نائب الرئيس.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Latvia.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Latvia welcomes the delegation of the Lao People's Democratic Republic to the UPR Working Group. We know the efforts taken by the government of Lao PDR since the third review and encourage implementation of its human rights obligations and commitments, also through strengthening cooperation with the United Nations human rights mechanisms. Latvia would like to make the following recommendations. 1. To establish an independent national human rights institution in line with the Paris Principles. 2. To ratify the second optional protocol to the ICCPR with the aim of abolishing the death penalty. 3. To promote and protect freedom of expression and safe and secure environment for civil society and to prevent acts of intimidation and harassment against human rights defenders, civil activists, journalists, and media workers. 4. To extend a standing invitation to all special procedure mandate holders of the Human Rights Council. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Lebanon.
Merci, Monsieur le Vice-président.
Le Liban souhaite la bienvenue à la délégation de la République démocratique populaire Lao et la remercie pour les informations complémentaires. Le Liban apprécie les efforts fournis par Lao pour appliquer les recommandations du cycle précédent de l'examen périodique universel, notamment celles sur la lutte contre la traite des êtres humains, malgré de nombreux défis. Nous saluons également l'engagement de Lao pour le traitement des problématiques liées au réchauffement climatique et au droit au développement. Dans un esprit de dialogue constructif, le Liban recommande à Lao 1 de continuer ses efforts visant à lutter contre la traite des êtres humains et contre toutes les formes de violence, notamment à l'encontre des femmes et des enfants. 2 de revoir les législations nationales pour les mettre en adéquation avec les dispositions de la Convention internationale sur les droits des personnes handicapées. 3 de promouvoir la participation des femmes à tous les niveaux de la vie politique. En conclusion, le Liban souhaite à la délégation de la République démocratique populaire Lao un examen périodique universel réussi. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Vice-président.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Lesotho.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Lesotho welcomes the distinguished delegation of the Lao People's Democratic Republic to the fourth cycle of the UPR process. My delegation recognizes the Lao PDR for its commitment to implementing its national agendas, which have achieved significant GDP growth and inflation reduction. We also welcome the Lao PDR's active engagement in preventing human trafficking and prosecuting trafficking cases. In a constructive spirit, Lesotho wishes to make 3 recommendations for consideration. Number 1, bolster measures to provide free or reduced fee legal aid to vulnerable populations to enable access to justice for all persons. 2, take steps to ensure the right to a fair trial for all, which includes enabling those accused of crimes to receive independent and competent legal representation. 3, strengthen child protection systems and intensify efforts to eradicate child marriage. And to conclude, the delegation of Lesotho wishes the Lao PDR every success with its 4th UPR cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Luxembourg.
Merci, Monsieur le Vice-président. Le Luxembourg souhaite la bienvenue à la délégation de la République démocratique populaire du Lao et la remercie pour la présentation de son rapport national et des efforts pour la mise en œuvre des recommandations du 3e cycle, y compris à travers notre coopération bilatérale fondée sur les droits, notamment le droit à la santé et la lutte contre la traite des personnes, dont nous nous félicitons. Dans un esprit de coopération constructive, le Luxembourg recommande de 1. Garantir que l'impact social de grands projets de développement d'infrastructures soit pris en compte de manière significative, conformément aux principes directeurs des Nations Unies relatifs aux entreprises et aux droits de l'homme. 2. Garantir l'exercice effectif de la liberté d'expression, de réunion et d'association, y compris en ligne, en révisant la législation pour éviter les entraves à l'action des ONG et des défenseurs des droits de l'homme et de les associer comme partenaires à la mise en œuvre de ces libertés. 3. Abolir définitivement la peine de mort. 4. Adresser une invitation permanente à toutes les procédures spéciales et répondre aux demandes de visite restées sans réponse. Nous souhaitons plein succès au Laos dans la mise en œuvre des recommandations du présent EPU. Et je vous remercie.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Malawi.
Mr. Vice President, Malawi warmly welcomes the Lao People's Republic to this review and thanks the distinguished delegation for the comprehensive report. Malawi notes the progress made in the promotion and protection of human rights since the last review and commends the government of Lao PDR for prioritizing access to justice for all through, among others, the offering of free legal aid to vulnerable people. In the spirit of constructive dialogue, Malawi makes the following recommendations to Lao PDR. 1. Consider ratifying International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. 2. Continue with efforts to ensure the protection of rights of minority groups. And 3, consider issuing a standing invitation to all United Nations Special Procedure Mandate holders, ensuring they have unhindered access to all areas of the country. We wish the Lao People's Democratic Republic all the best at this review and in the implementation of the recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Malaysia.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Malaysia thanks Lao PDR for the presentations of its national report. We commend Lao PDR for making significant progress in strengthening the promotion and protection of human rights, in line with its international obligations and commitments. In the spirit of constructive engagement, Malaysia recommends the following. First, ensure that the constitutional amendment process remains transparent, inclusive, and participatory across all segments of society. Second, enhance regional cooperation and data sharing to address cross-border trafficking, job scams, and money laundering. And third, scale up support for community-led livelihood and nutrition initiative to ensure equitable development and resilience among vulnerable population. We wish Lao PDR a successful review. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegation of Maldives.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The Maldives warmly welcomes the distinguished delegation from Lao People's Democratic Republic to this fourth cycle review and thanks the delegation for their presentation today. The Maldives commends Lao PDR for their significant efforts made during the review period to enhance human rights. In this regard, we welcome the policies and legal frameworks that are now in place to advance the human rights of women and children. In constructive spirit, the Maldives makes the following two recommendations. 1. Take effective action to strengthen implementation of anti-trafficking legislation and allocate resources to the identification, investigation, and prosecution of cases of trafficking with a particular focus on women and children. 2. Increase investments in climate-resilient water, sanitation, and hygiene services, prioritizing access for the most vulnerable populations. We wish Lao PDR a successful review. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Malta.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Malta welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic and thanks them for the country report. We urge the government to formulate and implement reforms aimed at improving citizens' economic, social, and cultural rights, including by boosting vaccination rates among children, ensure equal access to education to all, including in the rural regions of the country. We also urge Lao PDR to review its laws on restrictions on so-called criticism of government policies and to ensure that this legislation complies with the provisions set out in the ICCPR. We would like to make the following recommendations. Ratify the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. 2. Ratify the first and second optional protocols to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the optional protocol to the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. 3. Enact constitutional and legislative changes to fully incorporate the prohibition of gender-based discrimination in all applicable laws. We wish Lao People's Democratic Republic a successful review. Thank you.
Thank you. Now a video statement by the Marshall Islands.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Republic of the Marshall Islands welcomes the delegation of the Lao People's Democratic Republic and thanks them for the presentation of the report. We commend Laos for its continued effort towards graduating from LDC status and ensuring the successful realization of the SDGs. We look forward to seeing the government maintain momentum in this regard. We also welcome Laos's demonstrated commitment to addressing the effects of climate change, particularly through the ambitious targets outlined in its revised NDC. In the spirit of constructive dialogue, we recommend the following. Consider establishing an official moratorium on the application of the death penalty with a view to its complete abolition. Continue to advance the rights of women, including by considering the ratification of the optional protocol to CEDAW, and finally, adopt human rights-based and gender-responsive approaches in environmental, climate change, and disaster risks reduction policies. We wish the delegation every success during its fourth UPR cycle. Komodada, and I thank you.
Now a video statement by Mauritius.
This delegation extends a very warm welcome to the high-level delegation of Laos attending this fourth cycle of the UPR. We welcome the progress made by Laos since its last review. We congratulate Laos on its economic progress to graduating into a middle-income country for its strategy to alleviate poverty and improve well-being. In a constructive spirit, we would like to recommend that Laos continues its efforts to put in place adequate policies and make appropriate budgetary allocations to ensure that universal health coverage, in particular for those in rural areas, and continues its efforts to enhancing support for students from vulnerable groups with a view to improving access to education. We wish Laos a successful review and continued progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Mexico.
Vicepresidente, agradecemos a Laos por su informe y reconocemos la prohibición del castigo corporal, los planes que promueven entornos escolares libres de violencia, así como las mejoras en las transparencias legislativas. De forma constructiva y respetuosa, México recomienda: 1. Fortalecer el enfoque basado en derechos humanos y sensible a la discapacidad en los programas de recuperación de tierras agrícolas previamente contaminadas por municiones sin detonar, así como en los servicios de asistencia a víctimas, especialmente en zonas remotas. 2. Permitir el acceso a la ONU a Sumbue y garantizar los DESC a los Kumu, Humung, incluidos Homong, Chaofa, asegurando que los proyectos de desarrollo respeten las obligaciones constitucionales de igualdad, no discriminación, libertad de circulación y las provisiones de consentimiento libre, previo, informado e indemnización justa por reasentamiento. 3. Revisar el Programa Nacional de Planificación Familiar y realizar un estudio que identifique y aborde lagunas existentes para mejorar la salud materno-infantil y prevenir embarazos adolescentes, especialmente en zonas remotas. Deseamos a Laos éxito en este ciclo de examen. Muchas gracias, señor vicepresidente.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Mongolia.
Mr. Vice President, Mongolia warmly welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic to its 4th UPR review. We commend the positive steps taken in areas such as poverty reduction and social welfare, as well as the increased access to education and healthcare. In the spirit of constructive engagement, Mongolia would like to recommend Lao PDR 1 to step up the fight against trafficking in persons with a particular focus on women and children and ensure access to services for survivors. 2, to consider ratifying the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. 3, to ensure that its courts effectively apply international human rights instruments in individual cases. And 4, to step up efforts to improve the understanding and knowledge of human rights among law enforcement officials, including judges, prosecutors, and lawyers, and conduct regular training in this field. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Montenegro.
Vice President, Montenegro welcomes the distinguished delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic. We welcome the fact that the de facto moratorium on capital execution has been in place since 1989. Nevertheless, we note with regret that the law still retains the death penalty for a wide range of offenses, including drug-related, that do not meet the threshold of most serious crimes. While we recognize that the Constitution and other relevant legal framework guarantee fundamental freedoms to citizens, we are concerned about UN reports of routine violations of these rights by the authorities. We therefore call on the government to work to build a safe environment for the full enjoyment of human rights without fear of sanctions or reprisals. Montenegro recommends 1, to institute an official moratorium on execution and commute existing death sentences to terms of imprisonment with a view to abolishing it for all offenses, and 2, to amend the labor law and other legislation to address sexual harassment in employment and in all workplace contexts. We wish Lao People's Democratic Republic a successful review. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Morocco.
Mr. Vice President, my delegation welcomes the Lao People's Democratic Republic delegation and expresses its satisfaction at the actions undertaken since the previous UPR cycle, in particular the implementation of the 9 5-year National Socio-Economic Development Plan. Aware of the difficulties experienced by the country since the 3rd cycle, in particular natural disasters and the significant impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, Morocco wishes to make the following recommendations. 1, establish a national human rights institution with an explicit mandate and necessary means in line with the Paris Principles. 2nd, maintain the existing efforts to ensure the adoption of strategies to strengthen the right to education, particularly for girls. We wish the delegation of Lao a successful review. I thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Namibia.
Mr. Vice President, Namibia warmly welcomes the distinguished delegation of Lao PDR and thanks them for their comprehensive report. We commend Lao PDR for accepting 160 of the 226 recommendations made during the third cycle. In the spirit of constructive dialogue, we wish to offer the following 4 recommendations. 1, consider establishing a national human rights institution in compliance with the Paris Principles. 2, consider ratifying the optional protocol to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. 3, consider ratifying the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. And 4, consider ratifying the optional protocol to the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. We wish Lao PDR a successful 4th review. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Nepal.
Mr. Vice President, Nepal welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic to the 4th cycle of UPR and thanks them for the presentation of national report. We take note of the various laws adopted by Lao PDR since the last UPR and appreciate its constructive engagement with the human rights mechanisms. We take good note of the progress achieved by Lao PDR in the areas of socio-economic development and its effort towards graduating from LDC status next year. In a constructive spirit, Nepal recommends Lao PDR the following. First, set up the measures to enhance access to quality education for all. Second, continue strengthening social protection measures for women, children, people with disabilities, and senior citizens. 3, consider establishing a national human rights institution in line with Paris Principle. We wish Lao PDR a successful review. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The Kingdom of the Netherlands thanks the delegation of Laos for the presentation of its national report. The Netherlands commends the government of Laos for encouraging gender diversity, as well as providing more space for gender-related advocacy. In line with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Netherlands recommends to 1. Ensure the comprehensive protection of human rights defenders and activists from human rights violations, including arbitrary arrests or detention, torture, enforced disappearance, and other judicial harassments and physical or physiological intimidation, and codify this in Lao law. 2. Safeguard the right to freedom of expression by repealing or amending ambiguous laws such as the 2015 Cybercrime Law and Articles 110 on acts of betrayal towards the nation and 117 on propaganda against the state of the Penal Code. The Netherlands wishes Laos success with the follow-up of all recommendations it receives during this 3rd UPR cycle. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of New Zealand.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. New Zealand warmly welcomes the delegation from Lao People's Democratic Republic today and acknowledges the country's ongoing engagement with UN mechanisms, including the UPR. New Zealand recommends that Lao PDR continue to strengthen its education system to ensure inclusive and equitable education opportunities for all, including addressing the teacher shortages and improving school facilities. Review and amend legislation and practices relating to freedom of expression and assembly to fully enable the function of non-government organisations and civil society. And legislate for the recognition and protection of Indigenous peoples in Lao PDR. We thank the delegation for their participation today and wish them a successful review.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Oman.
سيد نائب الرئيس، نرحب بوفد جمهورية لاوس الديمقراطية الشعبية الصديقة ونثمن عالياً الجهود المبذولة في اعتماد المنهجية التشاركية لإعداد التقرير الوطني والتعامل الإيجابي مع آلية الاستعراض الدوري الشامل في دورته الرابعة. وفي هذا الإطار اطلع وفد بلادي على التقرير الوطني المقدم من جمهورية لاوس الديمقراطية الشعبية الصديقة ويشيد بالخطوات الإيجابية التي اتخذتها الدولة في مجال التعليم، وفي مقدمتها تنفيذ خطة تطوير قطاع التعليم والرياضة للفترة 2021-2025 وإطلاق مشروع المعلمين المتنقلين لدعم التعليم في المناطق النائية. وفي إطار التفاعل والحوار البناء يوصي وفد بلادي بالتالي: أولاً، مواصلة تنفيذ البرامج التنموية الموجهة للفئات المهمشة. ثانياً، تعزيز سبل الوصول إلى العدالة للجميع وتوفير المساعدة القانونية. ثالثاً، اتخاذ مزيد من الخطوات لتمكين المرأة في جميع المجالات. وفي الختام، نتمنى لجمهورية لاوس الديمقراطية الشعبية الصديقة التوفيق في استعراض تقريرها الدوري ودوام التقدم والازدهار. وشكراً سيد نائب الرئيس.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Pakistan.
Mr. Vice President, Pakistan warmly welcomes the distinguished delegation of the Lao People's Democratic Republic and commends it for the comprehensive presentation of the country's fourth national report. My delegation appreciates the Lao PDR's efforts towards sustainable socio-economic development and poverty alleviation while addressing challenges such as climate change. We also appreciate the Lao PDR's efforts to ensure access to education and healthcare, particularly for women and children. With a respectful spirit, Pakistan recommends the government of the Lao People's Democratic Republic continue measures to alleviate poverty, assist affected families graduate from poverty, and uphold their right to development. Maintain the focus on reducing maternal and child mortality, improving nutrition, and ensuring access to medicine and medical products at reasonable prices, and further reduce barriers to women's participation in business and access to credit. We wish the Lao People's Democratic Republic every success with its fourth UPR. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Panama.
Gracias, señor presidente. Panamá saluda a la distinguida delegación de la República Democrática Popular Lao y agradece la presentación de su informe nacional. En un espíritu constructivo y de cooperación, recomendamos ratificar el segundo protocolo facultativo del Pacto Internacional de Derechos Civiles y Políticos destinado a abolir la pena de muerte y el Tratado sobre el Comercio de Armas. Mejorar la recopilación de datos sobre las víctimas de municiones en racimo y municiones sin detonar y asignar mayores recursos a su atención médica, rehabilitación y apoyo psicológico y velar por su inclusión social y económica. Garantizar que los adolescentes, especialmente las niñas, tengan acceso a información, educación y servicios de calidad integrales y adaptados a su edad para tomar decisiones informadas sobre su salud sexual y reproductiva, prevenir embarazos no deseados, protegerse contra la violencia de género y las infecciones de transmisión sexual y realizar una transición segura a la edad adulta, en consonancia con los compromisos de la CIPD 25. Le deseamos a la República Democrática Popular Lao éxitos en este cuarto ciclo del EPU. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Paraguay.
Gracias. Saludamos a la delegación de Lao, agradecemos su informe sobre las medidas y acciones tomadas en el ciclo anterior y alentamos a seguir reforzándolas para abordar los desafíos que aún persisten. En seguimiento a nuestras recomendaciones, valoramos los esfuerzos por erradicar el matrimonio forzado infantil, así como los avances normativos de protección de derechos de mujeres y niñas. Alentamos a reforzar el marco institucional respectivo. Preocupan los reportes sobre casos de detenciones arbitrarias y desapariciones forzadas. Exhortamos a acabar con tales prácticas. Recomendamos, 1, considerar ratificar la Convención Internacional contra las Desapariciones Forzadas y el segundo protocolo facultativo del Pacto Internacional de Derechos Civiles y Políticos. 2, revisar la legislación vigente a fin de reducir los tipos penales pasibles de pena de muerte conforme al artículo 6 del Pacto Internacional de Derechos Civiles y Políticos. 3, fortalecer los mecanismos institucionales normativos y de políticas de prevención, combate y sanción de la trata de personas e intensificar las medidas de concienciación y sensibilización, así como el acceso de las víctimas a la justicia y el servicio de apoyo. 4, tomar medidas necesarias para erradicar de jure y de facto el matrimonio infantil y forzado. Y 5, fortalecer el Comité Nacional de Derechos Humanos como mecanismo nacional de implementación, informe y seguimiento de recomendaciones, considerando la posibilidad de recibir cooperación para el efecto. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of the Philippines.
Mr. Vice President, the Philippines warmly welcomes the delegation of the Lao People's Democratic Republic led by Deputy Foreign Minister Savanphet. We laud gains made in poverty reduction and development milestones achieved during the review period, which paved the way for an eventual exit from least developed country status. We welcome the steps taken to strengthen domestic frameworks for the protection of women and children, including the amended law on the protection of the rights and interests of children, and fourth five-year National Action Plan on Gender Equality. In the spirit of ASEAN solidarity, we offer the following recommendations. Continue to endeavor aligning domestic legal and policy frameworks with international human rights standards and obligations, including by establishing an independent national human rights institution. Sustain determined efforts aimed at combating gender-based violence and discrimination and women empowerment through intensified human rights education and training, among other measures. And strengthen efforts to combat human trafficking, including foreign nationals, by training law enforcement officers, prosecuting traffickers, assisting victims, and enhancing international cooperation. The Philippines wishes Lao PDR every success in this review process. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Portugal.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Portugal welcomes the delegation of Lao PDR and thanks it for the presentation of its national report. Portugal commends Lao PDR for the ongoing revision of the 2015 Constitution and for the implementation of the 9th National Socioeconomic Development Plan 2021-2025 for sustainable development and socioeconomical progress. Portugal recommends that Lao PDR 1. Ratifies the optional protocol to the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. 2. Takes effective measures to fully abide by its obligations to protect the rights of persons with disabilities by incorporating them in the forthcoming 10th National Socioeconomic Development Plan and amending legislation that restricts the rights of persons with disabilities to participate in political life, including their right to vote. 3. Guarantees the realization of labor rights by ensuring adequate working conditions for all and the rights to form trade unions with full independence. Portugal wishes Lao PDR a successful review. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Qatar.
السيد نائب الرئيس، نرحب بوفد جمهورية لاو الديمقراطية الشعبية ونشكرها على تقديم تقريره الوطني. نلاحظ مع التقدير التدابير التي اتخذتها جمهورية لاو لدعم تعزيز وحماية حقوق الإنسان في عدد من المجالات المهمة، منها مكافحة الاتجار بالبشر والحد من الفقر وتعزيز الحق في التعليم وتمكين المرأة. ودعما لهذه الجهود نتقدم بالتوصيات التالية. أولاً، إنشاء مؤسسة وطنية مستقلة لحقوق الإنسان وفقاً لمبادئ باريس. ثانياً، مواصلة الجهود لمكافحة الاتجار بالأشخاص وتخصيص مزيد من الموارد لتحديد حالات الاتجار والتحقيق فيها ومقاضاة مرتكبيها مع التركيز على النساء والأطفال بصفة خاصة. ثالثاً، تيسير التحاق جميع الأطفال بالتعليم الجيد، لا سيما الفتيات والأطفال ذوي الإعاقة من الأسر ذات الدخل المنخفض. وشكراً سيدي نائب الرئيس.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of the Republic of Korea.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The Republic of Korea welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic to its fourth cycle of the UPR. We commend the measures taken to protect women and children from trafficking since its last review, including the implementation of the National Action Plan on Combating Human Trafficking 2021 to 2025, and the amendment of the law on the protection of the rights and interests of the child to prohibit all forms of violence against children. With this in mind, the Republic of Korea recommends the following. 1. Continue effort to expand infrastructure and support services for victims of trafficking, while further strengthening awareness raising and training initiatives. 2. Redouble efforts to promote inclusive and quality healthcare services across the country, with particular focus on women, children, and ethnic minorities. 3. Intensify efforts to ensure equitable access to educational opportunities, particularly by supporting vulnerable girls and boys from low-income families and by establishing a digital-based education system. We wish Lao PDR every success with this UPR cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Romania.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Romania welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic and appreciates the submission of its national report and its engagement with the UPR process. We commend the steps taken to improve the legislative and institutional framework in the field of human rights since the last review, as well as the adoption of specific strategies on disaster risk reduction, persons with disabilities, and gender equality. Romania would like to make the following recommendations. Adopt legislative measures prohibiting child marriages. Strengthen the national child protection system by increasing budget allocations, developing professional training programs for social workers, and improving service delivery nationwide. Consider developing a national strategy for inclusive education aimed at addressing socio-economic difficulties affecting children's enrollment and retention in schools. Romania wishes the Lao PDR success in this UPR cycle. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of the Russian Federation.
Спасибо, господин заместитель председателя. Приветствуем делегацию Лаоса и благодарим за представленный доклад. Отмечаем, что национальный доклад содержит объективную картину состояния дел в сфере обеспечения прав человека в стране и представляет собой полный отчет о проделанной Лаосом работе за период с третьего цикла УПО. Отдельно хотели бы отметить активное участие Лаоса в региональном сотрудничестве по тематике защиты прав человека, в частности в различных программах, которые реализуются на территории страны учреждениями ООН, Фондом ООН в области народонаселения и правозащитными структурами АСЕАН. Констатируем целенаправленные усилия властей по обеспечению прав граждан в области образования и здравоохранения, а также по борьбе с бедностью и последствиями финансового кризиса. Позитивные оценки заслуживают предпринимаемые меры по защите прав женщин, в первую очередь в вопросах трудоустройства, предотвращению ранних браков, повышению доступности и качества среднего и высшего образования, противодействию торговле людьми и наркоторговле. Отмечаем эту большую и важную работу. Рекомендуем Лаосу продолжать предпринимать целенаправленные шаги в целях совершенствования национального законодательства и правоприменительной практики в части обеспечения гарантий соблюдения прав и свобод человека. Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Serbia.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The Republic of Serbia welcomes the delegation of Lao People's Democratic Republic at the UPR and thanks it for presenting its national report. Serbia commends Lao PDR dedication to the UPR process and its commitment to engage with UN human rights mechanisms. We commend Lao PDR for placing a particular focus on providing access to clean, adequate and affordable water for all through adopting the Vision 2040 and National Strategy on Water Management, Use and Water Resources for 2030. Serbia would like to make the following recommendations. To ratify the UNESCO Convention Against Discrimination in Education, to step up its efforts to decrease dropout rates in both lower and upper secondary schools, including combating violence in educational settings, and continue to increase access to healthcare services to women and girls, including those from ethnic minority groups, both in rural and remote areas. Serbia wishes Lao PDR a successful review process. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Singapore.
Mr. Vice President, at the outset, Singapore would like to commend the Lao People Democratic Republic's active leadership and engagement in the ASEAN framework for the promotion and protection of human rights during their ASEAN chairmanship in 2024. Singapore also welcomes the participation of Lao PDR in the UPR process and the progress made since its third review. Singapore commends Lao PDR's efforts to reduce its maternal and infant mortality rates since its last review. Singapore recommends that Lao PDR continue to promote the right to health for its people, particularly for women and children. Singapore welcomes Lao PDR's efforts to improve women's rights, including through the National Action Plan on Gender Equality and the Action Plan on Preventing Violence Against Women and Children. We commend the improvement in women representation in the Lao government. Singapore recommends that Lao PDR continue in its efforts to combat gender-based violence and to facilitate women's representation in leadership positions. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Slovenia.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Slovenia commends the delegation of Lao PDR for the national report, its presentation today, and the commitment to the UPR process. We commend Laos for its efforts in reducing maternal and child mortality and prohibiting all forms of violence against children, including corporal punishment. Nevertheless, Slovenia remains concerned about the high rates of child marriages, the civic space remaining closed, allegations of arbitrary arrests and forced disappearances, violations of the right to a fair trial, and other violations of the rights of human rights defenders. In the spirit of constructive engagement, Slovenia would like to recommend Laos to amend the law on preventing and combating violence against women, to include precise legal definitions, and to provide for a supportive environment necessary for women to exercise their rights, report crimes, and participate in criminal proceedings, including specialized gender units within the police and prosecution systems and assistance of psychological experts. We would also like to encourage Laos to abolish the death penalty and to ratify the second optional protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Italy.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Italy welcomes Laos People's Democratic Republic commitment to the UPR. Italy acknowledges the country's efforts aimed at addressing poverty, improving living conditions, and enhancing social protection. Italy positively notes that 2023 amendments to the law on protection of the rights and interests of children, which led to a ban on corporal punishment of children. Italy would like to offer Laos People's Democratic Republic the following 4 recommendations. 1. Introduce a de jure moratorium on capital execution and consider ratifying the second optional protocol to the ICCPR with a view to the full abolition of the death penalty. 2. Take decisive action to prevent and address trafficking in person, forced labor, and sexual exploitation, particularly when victims are girls and young women. 3. Ratify the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance and ensure full and impartial investigation into allegations of enforced disappearance. 4. Enhance the protection of freedom of expression, both online and offline, as well as freedom of association by ensuring a pluralist and safe working environment for journalists and human rights defenders. We wish Laos People's Democratic Republic a successful review. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, this was the last speaker on my list for this review. I would now like to give the floor to the delegation to address observations and comments that have been raised so far and to make their final remarks. You have the floor, Excellency.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President, I would like to thank once again UN member states for observations, comments, and recommendations during the second round of interventions. Before making my final remarks, I would like to invite my colleagues from the Ministry of Public Security, Ministry of Internal Affairs, National Assembly, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to deliver their respective statements addressing specific issues related to their responsibility. Please.
ท่านรองประธานเพื่อให้ประกันการดำเนินคดีและการสืบสวนสอบสวนให้มีความโปร่งใสและเป็นธรรมพร้อมทั้งไม่ล่วงละเมิดสิทธิและเสรีภาพของพลเมืองประมวลกฎหมายอาญาและกฎหมายว่าด้วยการดำเนินคดีอาญาฉบับที่ใช้อยู่ในปัจจุบันได้กำหนดหลักการพื้นฐานในการดำเนินคดีอาญาว่าการจับตัวการกักตัวและการกักขังที่บ่ถูกต้องตามกฎหมายถือเป็นการกระทำผิดทางอาญากฎหมายฉบับดังกล่าวมาตรา10 12 14 65และมาตรา90ยังรับประกันสิทธิในการต่อสู้คดีของผู้ถูกสงสัยผู้ถูกหาและจำเลยอย่างโปร่งใสและเป็นธรรมโดยถือว่าผู้เกี่ยวยังเป็นผู้บริสุทธิ์ถ้ายังบ่ทันมีคำตัดสินของศาลที่ใช้ได้อย่างเด็ดขาดนอกจากนั้นในปี 2021 เจ้าหน้าที่ได้สร้างปึ้มคู่มือการดำเนินคดีอาญาขององค์การสืบสวนสอบสวนของเจ้าหน้าที่ตำรวจซึ่งได้ช่วยเพิ่มประสิทธิภาพของการดำเนินคดีและการสืบสวนสอบสวนมีความว่องไวและโปร่งใสยิ่งขึ้นการปรับปรุงเงื่อนไขค่ายคุมขังรัฐบาลได้สนองงบประมาณใส่การก่อสร้างพื้นฐานของรางและสิ่งอำนวยความสะดวกต่างๆอย่างต่อเนื่องคือปี 2021 ได้สร้างค่ายคุมขังเพิ่มเติม2ค่ายและปัจจุบันกำลังดำเนินการก่อสร้างเติมอีกจำนวน2ค่ายซึ่งบรรดาค่ายดังกล่าวได้สร้างให้มีสุขศาลาและประกอบพนักงานแพทย์เพื่อติดตามกวดการสุขภาพของนักโทษและปิ่นปัวในเวลาเจ็บเป็นอย่างเป็นปกติมีเฮือนพบญาติมีระบบโทรโข่งและหอข่าวเพื่อติดตามข้อมูลข่าวสารต่างๆ อยู่แต่ละค่ายคุมขังมีการแบ่งเขตคุ้มครองเขตกักขังคุมขังที่แยกยิงทรายแยกผู้ติดเชื้อพยาธิติดต่อเขตทำการผลิตตามมาตรา 18 ของดำรัสว่าโดยการคุ้มครองรัฐสร้างปี 2023 เกี่ยวกับการสกัดกั้นและต้านการฆ่ามนุษย์สปป.ลาวได้ให้ความสำคัญในเวียงงานสกัดกั้นและต้านการฆ่ามนุษย์โดยการเข้าร่วมเป็นภาคีสนธิสัญญาสากลต่างๆได้รับรองเอากฎหมายว่าโดยการต้านการฆ่ามนุษย์นับแต่ปี 2015 เป็นต้นมาในปี 2023 ได้สร้างและปรับปรุงกฎหมายหลายฉบับที่เกี่ยวข้องเป็นต้นกฎหมายว่าโดยการจัดหางานกฎหมายว่าโดยการปกป้องสิทธิและผลประโยชน์ของเด็กได้จัดตั้งปฏิบัติแผนงานแห่งชาติว่าโดยการสกัดกั้นและต้านการฆ่ามนุษย์ระยะ 3 แต่ปี 2021 ถึงปี 2025 ปัญหาที่พ้นเด่นแม้นการแก้ไขปัญหากลุ่มส่อโกงทางโทรคมนับแต่ท้ายปี 2022 เป็นต้นมากระทรวงป้องกันความสงบได้ตกลงมอบให้กรมตำรวจสกัดกั้นและต้านการฆ่ามนุษย์ประสานสมทบกับองค์การปกครองแขวงบ่อแก้วกองบัญชาการป้องกันความสงบเขตเศรษฐกิจพิเศษสามเหลี่ยมค่ำองค์การคุ้มครองบริหารและสภาบริหารเขตเศรษฐกิจพิเศษสามเหลี่ยมค่ำหรือผู้พัฒนาซุ้มใส่แก้ไขสภาพปรากฏการณ์ย่อท่อและหางเสียงของสังคมอยู่ในเขตดังกล่าวอย่างจริงจังและเข้มงวดแสดงออกคือเดือนสิงหาปี 2022 ได้เริ่มต้นดำเนินการเก็บกำสถิติกวดกาและแจ้งให้บรรดาหัวหน่วยธุรกิจอยู่ภายในเขตหยุดเศร้าการดำเนินกิจการที่ผิดต่อระเบียบกฎหมายและในเดือนกันยายนปี 2022 ได้ดำเนินการกวดกาเลิกฮื้อบรรดาหัวหน่วยที่มีการละเมิดนับแต่ปี 2022 ฮอดปัจจุบันสามารถให้การช่วยเหลือและส่งผู้ถูกขอให้และสงสัยเป็นผู้ถูกขอให้กลับคืนสู่ครอบครัวและกลับคืนประเทศทั้งหมด 2,918 คนยิง 451 คนประกอบมี 30 สัญชาติมาถึงปัจจุบันสภาพอยู่ภายในเขตเศรษฐกิจพิเศษสามเหลี่ยมได้กลับเข้าสู่สภาวะปกติแต่พวกเฮาก็ยังสืบต่อจัดตั้งคณะเฉพาะกิจเพื่อติดตามเฝ้าระวังเด็ดขาดบ่ให้มีการเคลื่อนไหวส่อโกงทางโทรคมพร้อมหวังว่าบรรดาประเทศต้นทางจะช่วยมีส่วนร่วมในการแก้ไขสิ่งท้าทายที่เกิดขึ้นโดยการแจ้งเตือนพลเมืองของตนบ่ให้หลงเชื่อต่อการโฆษณาในลักษณะเฮ็ดเวียกเบาและได้รับเงินเดือนสูงขอขอบใจท่านรองประธาน
Mr. Vice President, distinguished delegate, Lao government recognized the importance of the contribution of INGO to the national socio-economic developments. The decree on INGO as well as relevant guideline and implementation manual all serve to create favorable conditions for INGO to implement their work in the Lao PDR. In addition, Lao government together with INGO network regularly conduct consultation process every 3 months to update progress, discuss challenges and emerging challenges. This platform by Ministry of Foreign Affairs create an opportunity for Lai Ministry and their INGO implementation partner to address ongoing issues and agree on future cooperation framework. The Lao PDR is currently revising the decree on INGO to better facilitate the implementation of practical work, especially the approval of project activity and emergency assistance, with the aim of further enhancing efficiency of both Lai Ministry and INGO cooperation project. The decree revision is expected to be complete by June 2025. For associations and foundations that are directly related to the work of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, namely cooperation between association and foundation, as well as INGO and foreign entities, the Lao government had not limited the acceptance of funds or create any obstacle in this regard. For the approval of any memorandum of understanding, if these organizations have submitted complete document in accordance with the regulation, the approval process will be considered within 15 working days. Currently, the Lao PDR is revising the decree on association and foundation, which is in the final stage. Mr. Vice President, the Lao PDR has emphasized its strong commitment and put its utmost effort to graduate from the least developed country status. The triennial review by the Committee for Development Policy in March 2024 showed that the Lao PDR continues to meet or criteria for LDC graduation for the third time. This means that the Lao PDR is on track to graduate from the LDC status by 2026. In this connection, the Lao government adopted the National Smooth Transition Strategy for LDC graduation in 2026 and beyond, in order to ensure that the country maintains development progress and avoid potential negative impact associated with the loss of LDC-specific international support measures. In line with the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the periodic National Socio-Economic Development Plan. For the implementation of the SDG, the Lao PDR has made a good progress in some of the indicators. For example, poverty rate have reduced from 38% in the 1970 to 8% in 2024. Literacy rate is now at 85% compared to 41% in the 1980. Although progress has been made, Lao PDR still faced with numerous challenges as reflected in the third voluntary national report submitted at the high-level political forum in July 2024. I thank you.
ท่านรองประธานข้าพเจ้าขอแลกเปลี่ยนปัญหาสิทธิเสรีภาพในการเชื่อถือศาสนาสปป.ลาวประกอบด้วย50ชนเผ่าที่มีการเชื่อถือศาสนาที่แตกต่างกันซึ่งทางด้านนิติกรรมของสปป.ลาวได้กำหนดแนวทางนโยบายระเบียบหลักการและมาตรการเพื่อให้ประชาชนบรรดาเผ่ามีสิทธิเสรีภาพในการเชื่อถือหรือบ่เชื่อถือศาสนาด้วยความสมัครใจและรัฐให้การเคารพการเคลื่อนไหวศาสนาของศาสนิกชนห้ามบ่ให้มีการบังคับด้วยทางกรมหรือทางอ้อมเพื่อให้เชื่อถือหรือยึดถือเชื่อถือศาสนาใดหนึ่งรวมทั้งการนำใช้วาจาหรือการประพฤติการกระทำที่เป็นการใส่ร้ายป้ายสีศาสนาอื่นหรือใช้การซื้อจ้างจอบอ้อยยุยงส่งเสริมให้เชื่อถือหรือยึดเสาการเชื่อถือศาสนาหนึ่งที่บ่เกิดขึ้นตามความสมัครใจเพราะเป็นการละเมิดสิทธิเสรีภาพของพลเมืองรัฐธรรมนูญมาตรา9มาตรา35และมาตรา44ยังได้กำหนดเกี่ยวกับสิทธิเสรีภาพทางด้านศาสนาปัจจุบันสปป.ลาวมี6การจัดตั้งศาสนาที่ขึ้นกับ4ศาสนาคือศาสนาพุทธศาสนาคริสต์ศาสนาบาฮายและศาสนาอิสลามนอกจากนี้แล้วประชาชนลาวบรรดาเผ่าจำนวนหนึ่งยังนับถือและปฏิบัติตามมิตรของบางภาพบุรุษหรือเอิ้นกันว่าเสื้อถือผีนับแต่ปี2020เป็นต้นมากระทรวงภายในได้จัดกองประชุมเผยแพร่อำนาจ315/รบให้แก่เจ้าหน้าที่องค์การปกครองท้องถิ่นผู้ต่างหน้าจากองค์การจัดตั้งศาสนาในขอบเขตทั่วประเทศเพื่อได้รับรู้เข้าใจได้นำไปจัดตั้งปฏิบัติให้สอดคล้องกับสภาพของเป็นจริงของแต่ละท้องถิ่นทั้งได้เปิดโอกาสให้มีการปรึกษาหรือแท้ทาบถามทัศนะในการจัดตั้งปฏิบัติดำนัดดังกล่าวและสร้างกลไกการประสานงานเพื่อจะปรับปรุงดำนัดเป็นกฎหมายในส่วนปีต่อหน้าสำหรับปัญหาสิทธิของชนเผ่าพลเมืองของสปป.ลาวดำรงชีวิตปนเปร่วมกันแต่เหนือหอดใต้โดยบ่มีการจำแนกรัฐธรรมนูญมาตรา1ได้กำหนดว่าสปป.ลาวเป็นประเทศที่เอกภาพของทุกชนเผ่าที่ตัดแยกออกจากกันบ่ได้มาตรา8ได้กำหนดอีกว่ารัฐปฏิบัตินโยบายสามัคคีและเสมอภาคระหว่างชนเผ่าต่างๆทุกชนเผ่ามีสิทธิปกปักรักษาเสริมขยายฮิตของประเพณีและมาทำเป็นงานของตนและของชาติห้ามทุกการประพฤติการกระทำที่เป็นการจำแนกเป็นการแบ่งแยกระหว่างชนเผ่ารัฐนำใช้ทุกมาตรการเพื่อเสริมขยายและยกระดับเศรษฐกิจสังคมของทุกชนเผ่าให้สูงขึ้นหมายว่าทุกชนเผ่ามีสิทธิและพันธะเท่าเทียมกันต่อหน้ารัฐธรรมนูญและกฎหมายสามารถเข้าร่วมทุกเรื่องงานการบริหารของรัฐและการตัดสินปัญหาของรัฐบาลซึ่งจะเห็นได้ในองค์ประกอบบุคลากรของสภาแห่งชาติคณะรัฐบาลก็คือบุคลากรขององค์การตุลาการแม้นประกอบด้วยหลายชนเผ่าในนั้นสำคัญพวกเรามีชนเผ่าดำรงตำแหน่งอยู่ในห้องประธานประเทศห้องประธานสภาแห่งชาติห้องนายกรัฐมนตรีนอกจากนั้นยังมีเจ้าแขวงห้องเจ้าแขวงรัฐมนตรีห้องรัฐมนตรีเอกอัครทูตประจำอยู่ต่างประเทศเจ้าเมืองรวมทั้งพนักงานราชการในตำแหน่งบริหารอยู่ขั้นศูนย์กลางและท้องถิ่นที่เป็นชนเผ่าต่างๆทั้งหมดมันแสดงอยากจะแจ้งว่าพลเมืองลาวจะแม่นชนเผ่าอะไรก็ตามล้วนแต่มีสิทธิเท่าเทียมกันโดยบ่มีการจำแนกเริ่มแต่ปี2003รัฐบาลน้ำหองได้ประกาศใช้ดำนัดมาด้วยเป็นงานชนเผ่าเลขที่207/รบซึ่งได้กำหนดนโยบายต่างๆเพื่อส่งเสริมให้บุคคลนิติบุคคลและการจัดตั้งทุกภาคส่วนรวมทั้งภาครัฐเอกชนเข้าร่วมในการจัดตั้งปฏิบัติเวียงงานชนเผ่าโดยการเสริมขยายมูลเสื้อแห่งความสามัคคีปองดองปฏิบัติที่เสมอภาคระหว่างชนเผ่าต่อหน้ากฎหมายปกปักรักษาและเสริมขยายฮิตความประเพณีและวัฒนธรรมงามสร้างจิตสำนึกให้ชนเผ่าต่างๆมีความภูมิใจในชนเผ่าของตนเองแก้ไขความแตกต่างกันทางด้านต่างๆช ส่งเสริมความรู้ความสามารถและภูมิปัญญาของแต่ละชนเผ่าในการปกป้องรักษาและสร้างสรรค์พัฒนาประเทศชาติท่านรองประธานถึงอย่างไรก็ตามเพื่อแก้ไขสิ่งท้าทายเกี่ยวกับเรื่องงานชนเผ่าและศาสนาพวกเขาจะต้องได้สืบต่อค้นคว้าปรับปรุงดำรัสให้เป็นกฎหมายเพิ่มเติมบรรณาธิกรรมเอาใจใส่การโฆษณาเผยแพร่และฝึกอบรมเจ้าหน้าที่ขั้นท้องถิ่นปรับปรุงโครงจักการจัดตั้งและบุคลากรเพิ่มทวีกลไกการประสานงานระหว่างภาคส่วนที่เกี่ยวข้องให้มีความกลมเกลียวว่องไวทางมีประสิทธิผลเอาใจใส่ติดตามกวดกาคุ้มครองการเคลื่อนไหวงานดังกล่าวให้ถูกต้องสอดคล้องกับระเบียบกฎหมายเพิ่มทวีการผูกพันร่วมมือสากลองค์การจัดตั้งทางภายในและต่างประเทศขอบใจ
ท่านรองประธานรัฐบาลแห่งสปป.ลาวได้ซุ่มใส่การสร้างความเข้มแข็งให้แก่การปกครองที่ดีโดยแนวใส่การสร้างรัฐที่ปกครองโดยกฎหมายตามหลักประชาธิปไตยอิงใส่การปรับปรุงรัฐธรรมนูญในการสร้างกฎหมายใหม่และดำรัสต่างๆเพื่อให้ประชาชนและองค์การจัดตั้งทางสังคมในการพัฒนาผัวพันกับภาครัฐพร้อมเดียวกันนั้นสมาชิกสภาแห่งชาติสมาชิกสภาส่วนแขวงและบรรดาพนักงานรัฐกรก็ได้รับรู้ถึงบทบาทดังกล่าวและนำพาประชาชนในการพัฒนาแบบมีส่วนร่วมและในระยะยาวยังมีประสิทธิภาพมาถึงปัจจุบันสภาแห่งชาติได้ทำห้องเอากฎหมายจำนวน169ฉบับในนั้นมีกฎหมายในคงเขตสิทธิมนุษย์จำนวน2ฉบับจุดประสงค์ในการปรับปรุงรัฐธรรมนูญปี2025แม้นเพื่อปรับปรุงระบบอำนาจแห่งรัฐให้มีประสิทธิภาพสูงสร้างบัตรเดียวใหม่ในการปกปักรักษาและสร้างสรรค์พัฒนาประเทศชาติการเชื่อมโยงเศรษฐกิจกับภาคพื้นและสากลในระยะใหม่แนวใช้เสริมขยายระบอบประชาธิปไตยประชาชนและรัฐที่ปกครองโดยกฎหมายสิทธิในการตัดสินชะตากรรมของประเทศชาติสิทธิเป็นเจ้าของประเทศชาติโดยประชาชนลาวบรรดาเผ่าซึ่งให้สิทธิมนุษย์และสิทธิพื้นฐานของประชาชนลาวบรรดาเผ่าได้รับการค้ำประกันอย่างเต็มส่วนกว่าเก่าในกระบวนการปรับปรุงรัฐธรรมนูญได้ดำเนินกองประชุมปรึกษาหารือประเมินผลการจัดตั้งปฏิบัติและทับทามความคิดความเห็นในขอบเขตทั่วประเทศจำนวน7จุดโดยมีการเข้าร่วมของพนักงานจากภาครัฐส่วนกลางและท้องถิ่นตัวแทนจากสถาบันการศึกษาคนครัวองค์การจัดตั้งทางสังคมและภาคเอกชนเข้าร่วมอย่างคงควงพร้อมนั้นในกระบวนการปรึกษาหารือก็ยังได้เปิดโอกาสให้มีการประกอบความเห็นอย่างกว้างขวางของประชาชนลาวผ่านช่องทางต่างๆเช่นผ่านทางอีเมลที่ตั้งขึ้นเฉพาะของคณะกรรมการระดับชาติในการปรับปรุงรัฐธรรมนูญและเว็บไซต์ของสภาแห่งชาติและห้างรัฐธรรมนูญ2025ได้นำเข้าพิจารณาในกองประชุมสมัยวิสามัญครั้งที่2ของสภาแห่งชาติสุดที่9ในวันที่17มีนา2025ที่ผ่านมาได้ถือกำห้องอย่างเป็นเอกสารจากสมาชิกสภาแห่งชาติจำนวน164ท่านรวมเอา 100%สภาแห่งชาติได้เสริมขยายพระบทบาทของตนในการสามารถปฏิบัติพระบทบาทได้อย่างเต็มส่วนและครบถ้วนตามที่ได้กำหนดไว้ในรัฐธรรมนูญทรงกับเป็นองค์การแห่งสิทธิและผลประโยชน์อันชอบธรรมของประชาชนลาวบรรดาเผ่าเป็นองค์การสูงสุดแห่งอันบรรลัยทั้งเป็นองค์การนิติบัญญัติเป็นต้นเป็นการเพิ่มทวีพระบทบาทในการติดตามกฎการเคารพปฏิบัติรัฐธรรมนูญและกฎหมายอำนาจรัฐอยู่ศูนย์กลางและท้องถิ่นได้สุกยุให้มีการปรับปรุงระบบการปกครองบริหารรัฐให้มีความเข้มแข็งกระทัดรัดโปร่งใสหนักแน่นและสอดคล้องกับสภาพการตัวจริงการแก้ไขกับห้องของความเป็นธรรมของประชาชนอยู่สปป.ลาวแม้นอยู่ภายใต้ขอบเขตสิทธิอำนาจของสภาแห่งชาติที่เป็นตัวแทนแห่งมนจิตและความมุ่งมั่นพัฒนาของประชาชนลาวทั้งชาติซึ่งปฏิบัติพระบทบาทในการติดตามกฎการรับและพิจารณาคำร้องของความเป็นธรรมของบุคคลนิติบุคคลหรือการจัดตั้งที่ยื่นต่อคณะประจำสภาแห่งชาติเพื่อร้องขอให้กฎการตกลงขององค์การปกครองท้องถิ่นคณะประจำสภาประชาชนแข่งรัฐบาลองค์การสืบสวนสอบสวนองค์การอัยการประชาชนและศาลประชาชนที่เห็นว่าการแก้ไขนั้นเป็นการละเมิดต่อกฎหมายละเมิดต่อการปกครองบ่ได้รับความเป็นธรรมและก่อความเสียหายให้แก่ผลประโยชน์ของรัฐหลวงหมู่หรือสิทธิผลประโยชน์อันชอบธรรมของพลเมืองแล้วนำส่งให้องค์การเกี่ยวข้องพิจารณาและแก้ไขตามกฎหมายให้ประกันความเป็นธรรมจัดตั้งปฏิบัติตัวจริงและสิ้นสุดตามกฎหมายเพื่อแน่ใส่เห็นให้กองจักรรัฐมีความเข้มแข็งพนักงานปฏิบัติหน้าที่อย่างถูกต้องโปร่งใสยุติธรรมประชาชนเชื่อมั่นต่อการนำพาของพรรครัฐต้านการสกัดกั้นปรากฏการณ์ย่อท้อทางสังคมปัจจุบันคำห้องเข้า5สภาแห่งชาติปี2023ฮอดท้ายเดือน3ปี2025มีทั้งหมด943เรื่องในนี้คำห้องอย่างคะจำนวน303เรื่องแก้ไขสำเร็จจำนวน640เรื่องขอบใจ
Mr. Vice President, on the issues and recommendations on national human rights institution, The Lao PDR acknowledges the importance and the role of national human rights institutions in the promotion and protection of human rights. The Lao PDR has just established an HRI based on the Paris principles, as we consider that the existing national arrangements that we have are suited and well responsive to the conditions and circumstances of the country. The national constitution, which has been amended recently, reaffirms human rights and fundamental rights and duties of the Lao people, which are always at the heart of the Lao government policies. The Lao PDR is a party to 7 core UN human rights treaties and 2 optional protocols. The implementation, monitoring, and reporting of the human rights obligations arising from the legally binding treaties and protocols, and also the commitment resulted from the Lao PDR participation in the charter-based mechanism, such as the UPR, are effectively coordinated nationally by the existing human rights bodies. These include the National Human Rights Committee, which is responsible for the ICCPR, IJESCA, CAT, ICERT, and also the UPR. The National Commission for the Advancement of Women, Mother and Child, which is responsible for CEDAW, CRC, including the 2 optional protocols to the CRC, while the National Committee for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities is in charge of CRPD. In the past, we conducted research and studies of inherent rights models of a number of countries, including through the organization of seminars, visits, exchanges, and also the functioning and operation of inherent rights. I would like to mention the useful visit and exchanges that we have recently with the Australian Human Rights Commission, which was in November 2023. Currently, the Lao PDR continue to strengthen the existing internal human rights mechanism rather than creating a new additional mechanism which would require time, human, and financial resources. One of the focuses we are also exploring is the NMIRF, which was developed by OHCHR and successfully applied in a number of countries. Mr. Vice President, on the ratification of the convention, particularly quite a number of recommendations made by member states on the Convention on the Protection of Own Person from Enforced Disappearances. This convention was signed by the Lao PDR in 2008, and currently we are in the process of studying this convention, which is a rather complex treaty in terms of its content and procedures, and also particularly the burden on reporting obligation. We are also looking into the domestic laws to ensure consistency and to raise awareness among officials widely across the country before any ratification in the future. Likewise, the Lao PDR needs time to study other conventions, particularly the Convention on the Rights of All Migrant Workers and Members of their Families, as well as the optional protocols to the various human rights treaties. I thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Mr. Vice President, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to address comments raised by the UN member state on behalf of Ministry of Health and Ministry of Education and Sports. Lao PDR prioritizes education, health, and poverty reduction as keys to its socio-economic and cultural development. The Lao PDR continues its effort to implement economic and cultural and poverty alleviation measures and make notable strides in improving the living standard of its people, particularly in reducing poverty rate with improved living standards in conjunction with the investment in health and education sectors. Regarding the right to health, Lao PDR has made significant progress in advancing its right to health since the last cycle UPR. The government has adopted 7 health-related laws and implemented key national strategies programs aimed at improving access to healthcare, especially in rural and remote areas. Lao government has prioritized maternal and child health and continued efforts to strengthen the healthcare system, expand healthcare services, improve access to quality of healthcare service, and nutrition for women, children, and vulnerable groups in rural areas, including vaccination and access to affordable quality medical products. Lao PDR prioritized reducing maternal and child mortality through the implementation of the National Strategy and Action Plan on Reproductive, Maternal, Newborn, Child, and Adolescent Health from 2021 to 2025, which aim to improve maternal child health care and reduce neonatal mortality. Mr. Vice President, regarding the right to education, Lao government has strengthened education sector by adopting, amending education laws, project and development plans. Between 2019 to 2023, Lao PDR allocated over 117,000 billion gift for 21 education projects and received a number of financial support from official development assistance in education sector, including INGOs and CSO. Lao government provides opportunity for all citizens to equitable access education at all levels, ensuring the right of education and offering free education in primary and secondary schools, particularly focused on providing scholarship, allowance, and accommodation for students in special education schools, including ethnic and disabled students. The school lunch program is covering 17 provinces, 65 districts, and 3,451 schools, benefited over 270,000 kindergarten and primary school students. Lao government continue to improve quality education in rural and addressing teacher shortage issue from increasing the quota of allocated teachers, postponing retirement for experienced teachers as volunteer, and coordinating with relevant officials for teaching in remote areas. The government has integrated reproductive health into curricula to address issues unintended pregnancy and early child marriage by integrating comprehensive sex education into the curriculum related to sexual health, reproductive health, prevention of sexually transmitted disease, HIVs, AIDS, gender equality, children's rights, and the safe use of information and communication technologies. I thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Mr. Vice President, distinguished delegates, that was the last intervention by members of the Lao delegation. Now please allow me to deliver my closing remarks. As we come to the conclusion of the review of the Lao PDR under the 4th cycle of the UPR process, I would like to express my gratitude to the UN member states for the active and constructive engagement today. Over the course of the review, my delegation has received many meaningful observations and feedback. We have tried our best to address the advanced questions and recommendations raised by UN member states during the review session. But given the time limit, some questions or issues may not be adequately addressed or responded. The candid and constructive dialogue today has underscored the shared commitment of UN member states in advancing the universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all, in accordance with the UN Charter, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the various international human rights instruments. The Lao PDR regards UPR as a valuable platform where UN member states share and exchange good practices, learn from each other's experiences to improve the human rights situation nationally, fostering the better understanding among nations and peoples. The Lao PDR is committed to the promotion and protection of human rights in accordance with the Constitution and national legislations, as well as the international human rights obligations and commitments of the country, considering the national circumstances and conditions. My delegation will take on board all the recommendations received from the UN member states today for further consultation and consideration. My delegation, in collaboration with the fourth cycle UPR drafting committee, will carefully work on received recommendations and will officially respond with the addendum before the 60th session of the Human Rights Council. Mr. Vice President, let us carry forward the spirit of UPR, the constructive engagement and dialogue, partnership, and shared commitment on the promotion and protection of human rights. My delegation looks forward to working closely with the Troika and the UPR Secretariat in the coming days before the adoption of the outcome report on 2nd of May 2025. In conclusion, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to you, Mr. Vice President, for your able chairmanship, to the Troika members, Burundi, Chile, and Marshall Islands, the UPR Secretariat, UN member states, and all involved, and the interpreters for the meaningful contribution to the successful conclusion of the review session today. I also thank the members of the Lao delegation representing relevant ministries and agencies of the Lao government for the good cooperation in the UPR process. I thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Excellency. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I thank the delegation of Lao PDR for the presentation and participation in this review. The report of the review will be prepared by the members of the Troika, namely the representatives of Burundi, Chile, and Marshall Islands. In accordance with the procedure implemented in 2015, the recommendations section of the report is scheduled for distribution on Thursday, 1st of May at 6 p.m. and will be considered for adoption on Friday, 2nd May, as from 3:30 p.m. The full report, including the summary section, will be circulated by email on Friday, 16th of May, 2025. Distinguished colleagues, this brings us to the end of our meeting. We will reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for the review of Spain. The speaking time will be 1 minute for all. Inscribed speakers who wish to withdraw from the list are kindly invited to use the online system event for withdrawals at the latest 30 minutes before the start of the review. I hereby close the fourth meeting of the 49th session of the UPR Working Group. Thank you all.